Chapter 297. Fiance. Shao Qingyuan? This was the first time Yundong had heard of such a thing. However, this happened before she escaped, so she tried her best to recall it. She had no impression of it at all. How would Shao Qingyuan know something that even she didn't know? She eyed him suspiciously, his face tight. Who told you I had a fiancé? Yun Shu told me. That was why he had rushed here and caught up with her in Yongning Prefecture. He was afraid that she would not only bring Gu Dajiang back, but also a strange man. Gu Yundong was stunned. Did Yun Shu say that? Where did that brat get such unreliable news? Gu Yundong glanced at Shao Qingyuan and turned to ask Madame Yang, who was compiling a puzzle. Mother, have I been engaged before? Madame Yang looked up in confusion. Engaged? Dong is engaged? To whom? Gu Yundong spread his hands at Shao Qingyuan. I don't have a fiancé, and my mother doesn't have any impression of him. If it was decided by my father, he would definitely tell my mother and me. Shao Qingyuan heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, but he remained calm on the surface. I understand. I might have misheard. They'll go back to my room to rest first. If you need anything, just call me. Yeah. Gu Yundong watched him walk out stiffly. When he heard the sound of the door opening and closing, he could not help but laugh. Dong, what are you laughing at? Ah, fiancé, Shao Qingyuan? Cough? Gu Yundong choked on her own saliva. She looked at the shocked Madame Yang and quickly shook her head. No, mother, you're thinking too much. Come, let's solve the puzzle. After we finish this, I'll make another one later and draw our family of 5. Okay? As expected, Madame Yang's attention was diverted. Thinking of the family of 5, she immediately nodded. Then I want to draw it. It's very big, so big. Gu Yundong nodded and sat beside her to play with her. However, Shao Qingyuan lay on the bed after returning to his room. He relaxed, smiled, and fell asleep in a second. Perhaps it was because he had not had a good rest for a long time. He only woke up when the sky turned dark. By the time he went downstairs, the inn's chefs had gone to bed. He rubbed his stomach and had no choice but to return to his room to take out the bag he carried. He found the hard pancake inside and took a difficult bite. She was taking her second bite when there was a knock on the door frame. He looked up and saw Gu Yundong leaning against the open door with his arms crossed. I'm hungry. I'll cook some supper. What do you want to eat? Shao Qingyuan immediately put down the pancake. Anything is fine. After a pause, he said, Egg fried rice. That was simple. Start the fire, she said, and was gone. Shao Qingyuan tidied his bag, closed the door, and followed Gu Yundong downstairs. Shao Qingyuan was quite agile with the fire. He sat quietly beside the stove and listened to the sound of eggs being added to the pot. Neither of them spoke, but his gaze kept glancing at Gu Yundong. For some reason, Shao Qingyuan felt that something was different when he saw her again. Although it was supper, Gu Yundong only took a small bowl. The rest went into Shao Qingyuan's stomach. He naturally knew that she had deliberately cooked it for him. After staying at the inn for the night, the 3 of them packed their things early the next morning and left Yongning Prefecture for Jiangyu County. The Gu village was under Jiangyu County. Chapter 298. It's called Gale. Shao Qingyuan still went to the carriage and horse shop to bring back the horse. He had bought this horse before he came. It was specially chosen to be young, strong, and tolerant. It looked very energetic. Along the way, the horse had interacted with Shao Qingyuan, and the man and horse had actually developed feelings for each other. He even secretly gave the horse a name, Gale, which was similar to Wind Chaser. When Gu Yundong heard this name, she was speechless. Why not Storm? After a night of rest in the carriage shop, the wind became energetic again. Gu Yundong wanted to give it a try. She let Shao Qingyuan drive the carriage and got on the back of Gale. He ran for a long time before stopping. The 3 of them only arrived at Jiangyu County when the sky was about to turn dark. Jiangyu County was very quiet now, especially at this time. There were almost no people on the streets. That was true. In that disaster, Jiangyu County had suffered heavy damage and its population had decreased drastically. Although many people had returned, Their vitality had decreased greatly and they could not recover for the time being. Gu Yundong and the others found an inconspicuous inn to stay in. It was rare for a guest to come to this place. The waiter, who was originally lifeless, immediately perked up when he saw them and hurriedly invited them in. "Sir, are you passing by our Jiangyu County or are you here to look for your relatives? If there's anything I can help with, just tell me. Although our inn is small, I can guarantee that you'll be at home." "Yes, I can help you find anything." Gu Yundong inquired about the situation in Jiangyu County. "This county isn't very lively, and there aren't many people on the streets. I saw that most of the shops were closed early. I wanted to buy some food just now, but I didn't see many shops." Sigh. The waiter couldn't help but sigh. As he led their carriage inside, he said, "There's nothing we can do. When the disaster came, many people left. In addition, many people who didn't have food at that time were forced to enter the city to snatch things. The owners of the shops in the county were terrified. Look, it's been a long time. The imperial court has also sent officers to help with the disaster, but isn't everyone used to it? When it was dark, they couldn't help but close the shops." As if afraid of scaring the two of them, the waiter hurriedly said, "But don't worry, sir. Our place is stable now. Everyone has planted new food. After the hard days are over, it will get better and better. Don't think that these shops are closed early as if there's no one around. It's still lively during the day." "Is that so?" Gu Yundong followed him into the inn and looked at the clean room. She was quite satisfied. When the waiter was about to leave, she asked casually, "By the way, I heard that before the disaster, there was a wonton restaurant called Xingxing Restaurant in the county. Is this restaurant still open?" Xingxing Restaurant was the restaurant where Gu Dajiang used to be the accountant. The waiter was stunned. "Xingxing Restaurant? There's a restaurant there that's still open, but it doesn't sell wontons." "Then I might have remembered wrongly." Gu Yundong smiled and did not continue asking. She didn't plan to go to the Gu village directly, so she had to go to that thriving restaurant tomorrow to take a look. She didn't know if the boss had any news of Gu Dajiang. However, they did not expect to see a familiar person when they entered Xingxing Restaurant the next day. It should be said that Gu Yundong found him familiar. That person was sitting at a table not far from the door, facing it. Chapter 299. Lost from Eldest Aunt. Gu Yundong did not recognize him at first. It was only when someone called his name that she took a few more glances at him. She tightened her grip slightly and asked Shao Qingyuan to bring her mother to sit by the window. She walked over and sat opposite that person. Someone suddenly sat down in front of him. That person raised his head slightly and was slightly stunned when he saw Gu Yundong's clothes. "You are the Jiang family's girl? Aren't you a little too young? Are you really 20 years old?" Gu Yundong frowned slightly. "You don't know me?" The man was surprised. "Do we know each other?" Gu Yundong took a deep breath and said, "My surname is Gu. My father is Gu Dajiang. Bian Mulan is my cousin. Cousin-in-law, do you remember?" That's right, the person in front of her was Bian Mulan's husband, Ding Jincheng. Ding Jincheng looked at her in shock. "You're that girl from the Gu family?" He looked like a completely different person. How was that possible? Of course, Ding Jincheng had seen Gu Yundong before, but at that time, Gu Yundong was short and small. She always lowered her head and was usually very busy. He was the son-in-law of the Bian family, and his mother-in-law didn't have a good relationship with the Gu family. She only visited her younger brother, Gu Dajiang, occasionally. Even his mother-in-law was like this, let alone him. In his memory, he had only accompanied Bian Mulan to visit his uncle 3 or 4 times. This sister-in-law of his uncle's family was from 2 years ago. Back then, she was even thinner and her clothes were tattered. At that time, his aunt had just become stupid, and Gu Dajiang's family had an especially difficult time. Now that he saw Gu Yundong again, he could not believe it even if he recognized her. "Sister Gu, you're still alive. That's great. Gu Yundong did not want to talk about himself. She just wanted to confirm one thing. "Cousin-in-law, where's my cousin?" She did not say that she had encountered Bian Mulan's grave. She still had a trace of hope. However, reality was always cruel. At the mention of Bien Mulan, Ding Jincheng could not help but wipe his face fiercely. Mulan is gone. Gu Yundong felt her throat tighten and she was thirsty. After a while, she heard her own calm voice. Why is she gone? Where are the bones? She starved to death, Ding Jincheng said. We were just a little bit away from reaching Qingyuan Prefecture. But she couldn't make it. She just died in front of me. I found a mountain and buried her there. What kind of mountain was it? How far was it from the Qingyuan Prefecture? Was there any village nearby? What's written on the stone tablet you erected for her? What kind of grave was it? Ding Jincheng answered them one by one. When Gu Yundong saw that all the details were the same as the grave she had seen back then, she was certain that it was indeed her cousin, Bien Mulan. She lowered her head slightly and felt her throat become even drier. What about my aunt and the others? Ding Jincheng shook his head. I don't know. Gu Yundong's expression changed slightly. What do you mean by you don't know? Didn't my eldest aunt's family leave Yongning Prefecture with you back then? At first, we were indeed together. However, a large group of refugees suddenly rushed out halfway and ran around in a panic. They said that there were bandits killing people behind. We panicked and ran with them. At that time, my parents were together. Mulan, Yuanji, and I were together. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were together. All of us got separated. Later, we found my parents, but we couldn't find my in-laws no matter what. We don't know their whereabouts. Gu Yundong frowned deeply. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. Where is Yuanji? Bien Yuanji was the youngest son of her eldest aunt. Ding Jincheng suddenly felt a little guilty and avoided eye contact. Chapter 300 Blind Date. Gu Yundong had a bad feeling. She stood up abruptly. Where is he? Not far away, Shao Qingyuan had been paying attention to this side. Seeing that she was angry, he quickly comforted Madame Yang and asked her to sit down and eat something before striding to her side. What is it? As he spoke, his sharp gaze landed on Ding Jincheng. He wasn't the only one. Everyone else in the restaurant was staring at their table. Fortunately, Xingxing restaurant was not big, and there were only a few people inside. Ding Jincheng was already frightened by Gu Yundong's sudden anger. Now that he saw Shao Qingyuan again, he could not help but shiver. He hurriedly explained, He's fine. Before Mulan died, she asked me to take care of Yuanji. I brought him back. He's at the old Gu family now. The Gu family? He actually sent Bien Yuanji to old Gus' house. Damn it, she knew too well what kind of people old Gu and Madame Zhao were. Her aunt and uncle were missing. It would be strange if they could take good care of Bien Yuanji. Unless Gu Dajiang was around. Thinking of this, she hurriedly asked Gu Dajiang if he was back. At this moment, a middle-aged woman walked over from afar. She was holding a young woman in her hand. The two of them were talking as they walked over. Jincheng, have you ordered food? You and I. Before she could finish speaking, she looked up and saw Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan standing beside her. The middle-aged woman was slightly stunned. She sized up the two of them and suddenly smiled. Are you friends with my Jincheng? Before Gu Yundong could speak, she heard Ding Jincheng deny it anxiously. No, mother. They were just asking me about something. Ding Jincheng's mother, Madame Hu, smiled and greeted them. What's the matter? Ask me. I know everything about the surrounding villages. No need. I'm done asking. Gu Yundong was in a bad mood and brought Shao Qingyuan back to her table. Before Shao Qingyuan left, he glanced at Ding Jincheng coldly. The latter did not even dare to look back. He could only smile dryly and sit down. There was still a little sweat on his forehead. Madame Hu also sat down with the girl beside her. She smiled and said, Look at our Jincheng. He's already nervous and is still sweating. Miss Jiang looked at Ding Jincheng a few more times, lowered her head slightly and said softly, Brother Ding is quite good. He's just a blockhead. He doesn't know how to speak. Madame Hu pretended to reprimand him, but she kicked him. At this moment, Ding Jincheng did not dare to speak. Although he did not turn around, he could feel the gaze behind him stabbing his back. Such a scene was not good to begin with, and even less so when Mulan's family bumped into it. Madam Hu called him a few more times. Jincheng, what's wrong? I called you a few times, but you didn't respond. Are you feeling unwell? Ding Jincheng shook his head violently and said to the girl opposite him, Miss Jiang, I'm sorry. I don't want to remarry now. My wife just passed away half a year ago. Madam Hu wished she could break his foot and seal his mouth. The smile on Miss Jiang's face froze and instantly collapsed. She said coldly, Did you misunderstand something? I just happened to bump into Auntie today. She said that the dishes in this restaurant are good, so I came over to take a look. But now it seems that this restaurant is too small. I'm uncomfortable. You guys eat by yourselves. I'll leave first. With that, she stood up and left. Hey! Madam Hu wanted to call her, but when she saw that everyone in the restaurant was looking at them, she immediately shut up. Then, she suddenly turned her head and glared at Ding Jincheng. Chapter 301. Lacking women so badly? What's wrong with you? What did I tell you? Madam Hu was furious. She reached out and pinched his arm fiercely. She said hatefully, Do you know how much effort I spent to find such a good girl for you? How much effort did I spend to persuade Miss Jiang to agree to come and take a look? Ding Jincheng's face flushed red. Mother, stop talking. Let's go. He stood up and did not even bother to eat. He wanted to pull Madam Hu away. Madam Hu flung his hand away. Why shouldn't I say anything? You refuse to admit that you're a blockhead. Bien Mulan has been dead for more than half a year, but you still. Since Ding Jincheng couldn't pull her away, he simply turned around and left. He felt that when Gu Yundong heard his mother mention Bien Mulan, she almost rushed over to beat him up. Madam Hu was stunned. Hey! Where are you going? Stop right there. Ding Jincheng, you're so capable. You angered Miss Jiang away. Are you trying to anger me to death? Mother, I've already said that I don't plan to get married now. After walking out of the restaurant for quite a distance, Ding Jincheng finally dared to speak softly. However, what she said made Madam Hu even angrier. You still don't plan to get married? You're really going to anger me to death. You're already 21 years old, but you don't even have a child now. Do you want our Ding family to have no descendants? How great is Miss Jiang? She's 2 years younger than you and is from the county city. She only has one father at home. In the future, when you get married, everything in her family will be yours. Let me tell you, Ding Jincheng, you've missed Miss Jiang. You'll be a bachelor for the rest of your life. Think about it. How many people from Yongning Prefecture are dead this time, especially girls? There aren't many who came back safely, and even if there are, they've long been chosen by others. Although Miss Jiang has also been married and widowed, she's still young and beautiful. Didn't you see what kind of women old Madame Chao introduced to you 2 days ago? They were 25 or 26 years old and even had children. It simply angered me to death. It wasn't easy for me to persuade Miss Jiang to meet you. When she saw you, she said that you're quite good. What exactly do you want? Ding Jincheng walked very quickly. He really did not want to hear her continue to nag. Madam Hu stepped forward and slapped him hard on the back. Did you hear that? You want to anger me to death, you want to anger me to death. Stop right there. If you continue forward, believe it or not, I'll bang my head against the wall and die here. Ding Jincheng suddenly stopped in his tracks and walked back helplessly. Mother, don't be like this. I already said, I don't care. You have to promise me today that you'll come with me to find Miss Jiang and apologize properly. Otherwise, I'll kill myself in front of you. Hey, Mother! Ding Jincheng sighed. Seeing that Madam Hu refused to give in, he could only agree. All right, I'll go with you. Only then did Madam Hu become happy. However, when the two of them arrived at the Jiang family, they were told that there was no one in the Jiang family. Madam Hu could only leave resentfully, but she was still unwilling. She turned around and glared at him. Come again tomorrow and have a good talk with Miss Jiang. Ding Jincheng didn't want to come, but seeing that her mother looked like she was going to cry on the streets, he could only nod his head haphazardly. Meanwhile, in Xingxing restaurant, Gu Yundong and the other two did not look too good as they watched Ding Jincheng and his mother leave. Gu Yundong gulped down half a pot of water before calming down slightly. It's only been half a year, and you're already so badly in need of a woman? My cousin hasn't even turned cold yet, and you're immediately looking for another one. And my cousin. Chapter 302. For people as Gu Yundong spoke, she took another sip of water. Shao Qingyuan reached out to pat her back, but Madame Yang beat him to it. Dong dong, don't be angry, don't be angry. Gu Yundong rubbed her temples. I'm not saying that he can't find another one. Ding Jincheng is only in his early 20s. But he doesn't have to be in such a hurry, right? It was a waste for my cousin to marry him. There was anger in her heart for Bien Mulan, who had lost her life because of her beauty, and also for her eldest aunt, whose whereabouts were still unknown. And Yuanji, he actually sent him to the Gu family. Gu Yundong originally did not want to go to the Gu family. She only wanted to find out Gu Dajiang's whereabouts. If he was not in the Gu village, she would secretly get someone to teach the Gu family a lesson. She did not even need to meet them. But things were different. She couldn't let Bien Yuanji stay in the Gu family. Her eldest aunt and uncle-in-law were dead, and her cousin had passed away. Bien Yuanji might be the last member of the Bien family. Among Gu Dajiang's many siblings, Gu Yundong only acknowledged his eldest aunt and youngest uncle as family, so it was impossible for her to ignore her eldest aunt's son. Shao Qingyuan supported her no matter what she did. From the looks of it, we have to get someone to go to Gu village to inquire about the situation and see if Uncle Gu has returned. Gu Yundong nodded. At this moment, the owner of Xingxing restaurant returned. He actually recognized Madame Yang and immediately came over when he saw her. Knowing that Gu Yundong was Gu Dajiang's daughter, he shook his head slightly and sighed. Your father and I are considered friends. I even went to the Gu village to ask before the new year. I thought that if he came back, he would come to my restaurant to be an accountant. Your father is serious and knowledgeable. I'm used to hiring him. Now that business is slowly improving, it's much easier for me if I could get his help. What a pity. He shook his head. Your grandparents actually said that your entire family died outside. I found it strange. Why is it so coincidental? Everyone else is fine, but none of your family survived. I didn't expect to see you and your mother now. I think your father must still be alive. He might be looking for you too. Yes, I also believe that he's still alive. Gu Yundong thanked him before leaving with Madame Yang and Shao Qingyuan. When they returned to the inn, Gu Yundong could tell that Madame Yang was in low spirits. She quickly comforted her. Mother, can we go home after we bring Yuanji out? Perhaps father has already found our house. Think about it, we're looking for father, and father must be looking for us too. We might have missed him, right? Madame Yang's mood improved a lot when she heard that. She nodded slightly. I miss Ashu and Kiki too. They'll go and solve the puzzles. She entered the house, but Gu Yundong was thinking about how to get Yuanji to come over. Let's find someone to inquire about the situation in Gu village first, Shao Qingyuan said. Gu Yundong agreed. But who should we ask? Shao Qingyuan glanced at the door. Gu Yundong was stunned and followed his gaze. The next moment her eyes widened. For people came in one after another. When they saw him, they immediately smiled brightly and rushed over. Brother Shao, we took the mule cart here. It's just that the mule cart was especially slow and kept pooping. When it sees any grass, it insists on eating it. The four of us together can't pull it back. Look, we're late. Don't take offense. Don't take offense. Chapter 303. Entering Gu village, Shao Qingyuan glanced at them. Yes, they were all wearing new clothes, and their hair was glossy. It was just that the smile on their faces was really too flattering. It's not too late. As he spoke, he turned to look at Gu Yundong. What do you think about letting them inquire? Gu Yundong was still a little surprised. Why are they here? These four people were the beggars who had previously helped them lie in the prefectural city. I don't think I know anyone here. We need someone to help us look for Uncle Gu. These people are quite reliable, so I might as well let them come together. It was only after Gu Yundong left Yongfu village that Shao Qingyuan suddenly realized that he needed to nurture reliable people. Otherwise, the next time she went somewhere else, he might still not be able to follow her. Although he had met these 4 people in the prefectural city of Yongning Prefecture, they were not bad. Back then, they had promised Gu Yundong to find trouble with Yu Yuwei. Later, they had been caught by him, but no matter how hard he tried to interrogate them, they never gave Gu Yundong away. They even knew how to divert attention and simply told the authorities about the Gao brothers. The 4 of them were not very old, about 12 or 13 years old. They were all very thin. One of them was the tallest. He looked like their boss called A Mao. Yes, the 4 of them were called A Mao, A Shu, A Go, and A Zhu. When Gu Yundong heard the names for the first time, she felt thunderstruck. Did they gather all the animals in the house? Maybe they should look for other animals if they had brothers. A Mao smiled and patted his chest at Gu Yundong. Don't worry, Mississippi. I promise we'll find out anything you want to know. Although we're all in the prefectural city, A Shu used to live in Jiangyu County. He's very familiar with this place. A Shu immediately nodded. Gu Yundong looked at Shao Qingyuan and agreed after some thought. Do you know about the Gu village? I know. A Shu said. I have a distant relative who married into the Gu village. Most of the people in that village have the surname Gu. The head of the Gu clan is not a good person. Oh, that was exactly what Gu Yundong was thinking. Wasn't that Gu family's patriarch a piece of trash? All right. Then help me find out more about the Gu Chuanzong family. Gu Yundong told them the details. The few of them immediately nodded and expressed that they wanted to set off without even drinking water. It was still early, and Gu village was not far from here. It was not too late to ask around. In the end, it was A Mao who brought A Shu there. The 2 of them could take care of each other. Shao Qingyuan sent them out and gave them a few taels of silver. He said, other than asking about the Gu Chuanzong family, ask about the Gu family's patriarch too. He had once heard Gu Yunshu talk about what the Gu family's patriarch had done to Gu Dajiang. If not for him, Gu Dajiang's family would have been independent long ago, and Gu Yundong would not have suffered for so many years. A Mao agreed and left with the money with a smile. The 2 of them were dressed cleanly and neatly. They drove the mule cart away. Fortunately, they were already familiar with driving. Otherwise, it would have wasted too much time. When the mule cart arrived at Gu village, someone saw it immediately. A Shu asked him about the location of his distant relative. This relative was the daughter of his aunt's family and could be considered his cousin. She was not very close to him and was even a little cold. Back then, when something happened to A Shu's family, he went to look for her aunt and asked her to lend some money. At that time, it was this cousin who came out and arrogantly said that her family did not have money, humiliating him fiercely. A Shu felt that although he had yet to make a name for himself, he could still use his clothes to intimidate others. Unexpectedly, as soon as the mule cart entered the village, it almost bumped into someone. Chapter 304. A child like a scared bird. A Mao cursed the mule and jumped out of the cart. The person who fell to the ground was a child. He didn't look very old and was carrying a bundle of firewood on his back. It was a little heavy. At this moment, he fell to the ground with the firewood. Actually, the mule cart did not hit him, but he was frightened. Coupled with the firewood, he fell to the ground and could not get up for a long time. Cat T frowned and lifted him up. Are you okay? The child shook his head. Seeing that he was frowning unhappily, he quickly hid his hand that had been scratched by the stone. It's okay. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. Don't hit me. I'll be very careful when I walk next time, really. A Mao was dumbfounded. Was he that scary? All right. I'm not going to hit you. Be careful when you walk. Of course, he had also seen the kid's hidden hand. Having been on the streets for a long time, he still had this bit of discernment. However, this child was like a frightened bird, looking like he wanted to leave quickly. He could only pretend not to see it and let him leave. The child struggled to carry the firewood on his back and did not dare to look back. He staggered in his tattered shoes as if he would fall at any moment. A Shu also got out of the cart. He looked at the child and said, "That child is carrying such heavy firewood on his back? What are his family members thinking? Maybe his family is poor, or his family doesn't treat him well." Mao shook his head. Let's go. He was a beggar. Even his meals were not guaranteed. How could he have extra sympathy for others? There were not many people in Gu village now. Ashu asked about his cousin's husband along the way. When she saw Ashu, the cousin was stunned. However, she was quickly attracted by his clothes and the mule cart. Seeing that Ashu looked rich, she immediately smiled and invited him in. I haven't seen you in a long time. Where have you been? Are you rich now? Ashu raised his chin slightly. I went to the prefectural city and didn't achieve anything. I just came back and planned to find a place to settle down. You know that my village doesn't get along with me. I heard that Gu village is not bad, so I came over to ask. That's right. There are no good people in your village. When your family was in trouble back then, they all hit you when you were down. It's better if you don't go. Our Gu village is not bad. If you want to settle down here, I am here too. I can take care of you. You're young. When you need to get married later, my cousin can help you find a good girl. How could this good-for-nothing afford a mule cart? Wear good clothes, walk with the wind, and speak with confidence. Back then, Ashu was not like this at all. Ashu nodded. Then do we have to look for the chief of Gu village? Where is his house? Will he agree to let me settle down? Yes, why not? He'll be very happy. Because of this disaster, Gu village had lost many people, and there were only few in the neighboring village. Now, the two villages had become one. Actually, there were many outsiders in Gu village, and now the Gu family took up at most half of the village. Ashu let his cousin lead the way. He and Amao went straight to the chief's house. After Ashu went in, Amao said impatiently, I'm going out for a walk. It's stuffy here. All right, go ahead. After Amao left, he wandered around the village for a while and found out about Gu Chuanzong's house. He stood at the entrance of the courtyard and glanced inside, but he did not expect to meet the eyes of the child who had almost bumped into him just now. Chapter 305. Old Gus Sigh. The child was stunned when he saw him. Terror flashed across his face as he hurriedly ran out. I really didn't mean to bump your carriage. I'm sorry. Don't be angry. Amao was stunned for a moment. He quickly pulled him behind a haystack and asked him with a frown, Are you from Gu Chuanzong's family? The child's face turned pale. Don't tell my grandpa. I can apologize. Wait. I'm not here to settle scores with you. Don't be nervous, don't be afraid. A bad feeling flashed across Amao's heart. You call Gu Chuanzong grandpa. You're his grandson. What's your name? The kid took a step back and shook his head, refusing to say. Amao wanted to ask something, but a sharp voice suddenly came from the courtyard. Bien tu, where did you go? Didn't I ask you to wash your clothes? Where are you? Bien tu, bien. The guess in Amao's heart was 70 to 80% confirmed, but the child took the opportunity when he was not paying attention to run away. Second aunt. He'll go wash the clothes right away. Right away? Why are you so useless? You're eating and drinking for free in our house. You don't even know how to do some work. I told you to wash them 2 hours ago. You're lazy, right? You're not allowed to eat tonight. Do you hear me? The child lowered his head slightly and rubbed his small hands together. However, the woman sneered and pulled his arm fiercely. What are you doing? You deliberately showed it to me. Do you want to say that your hand is injured? The child looked up and shook his head quickly. Then why are you crying? Smile for me. The child hurriedly opened his mouth and squeezed out a smile. His small hands were behind his back, and he even chuckled twice to show that he was smiling. The woman was disgusted. Your smile is so ugly. Hurry up and get to work. You still have to feed the pigs after washing the clothes, little bastard. After saying that, she pinched him hard again. The child staggered and wanted to cry, but when he thought of the woman's words, he did not dare to. He turned around and obediently went to carry the basket of clothes. The basket was not big, but there were many clothes inside, including women's clothes. The child wanted to put it on the ground and pull it, but he was afraid that it would break the basket, so he could only take out half of the clothes and wash the rest later. Amao clenched his fists tightly. He wanted to rush to the Gu family and beat that damn woman to death. What about Gu Chuanzong? Wasn't that child his grandson? Didn't he know that his grandson was being bullied? Of course, Gu Chuanzong knew. He was in the room at this moment. As he helped Madame Zhao pick up the beans, he sighed. Madame Zhao snorted. Why? Do you feel sorry for her? If you do, tell your second daughter-in-law not to scold her. Sigh. Dr. Gu sighed again. Forget it. This is bad luck. He has no parents. Even his sister is gone, and his brother-in-law's family doesn't want him. Since we're raising him, we can't let him do nothing. I know that this second daughter-in-law is angry. Her Xiener has been sold, and we don't know where she is now. In the end, our family is raising an outsider now. She definitely won't be happy. He won't lose anything even if she scolds him. That's right. Isn't there a saying about people who live under someone else's roof? It's already good enough that we're providing for him. As long as second daughter-in-law doesn't make a fuss, making the entire family unable to live in peace, it's fine even if Bien Tu gets scolded. Old Gu nodded, shook his head, and continued to pick up the beans. Mao, who was outside, followed the child to the river. He wanted to tell him to stop washing. Chapter 306. Waiting for your sister, however, the child was terrified the moment he saw him. He trembled and almost fell into the river. Mao could only stop and say to him, Don't worry, your sister will take you away soon. With that, he turned around and left. He had to quickly help Miss Gu find out what had happened and return to Jiangyu County. Miss Gu and Brother Shao were both capable people. They would definitely be able to take this child away. Bien Yuanji was startled. When he heard the word sister, he thought of Bien Mulan. He remembered that she was still worried about him before she died and told him to live well and reunite with his parents. However, when would he be able to find his parents? He was too tired and had to do many things every day. Second aunt hit him and his cousins also pinched him. He did not have dinner tonight. Oh, that's not right. He didn't seem to have eaten lunch either. He was so hungry now. Bien Yuanji blinked his eyes, cupped his hands and drank 2 mouthfuls of river water. After feeling that his stomach was no longer empty and uncomfortable, he squatted down and started to wash his clothes. On the other side, Mao had already quickly walked downstream. There were also a few women washing clothes there. He purposely pointed at Bien Yuanji and asked a few questions. These people loved to gossip. There were some things that Cat learned clearly without even asking. When he had heard enough, he hurried over to check on Bien Yuanji. He happened to see the child holding his stomach and looking at the river with a conflicted expression. After a while, the child squatted down and took 2 sips. When he felt a little better, he smiled. Mao recalled that when he was a beggar, he also had nothing to eat and could only drink some water to fill his stomach. That feeling was too uncomfortable. However, at least he did not have to work. If he was too hungry, he would lie in the dilapidated temple to conserve his strength. Seeing that the child had drunk 2 more mouthfuls of river water, he quickly reached out to search his body. He finally found half a steamed bun. He had bought it on the way here. He was used to being a beggar, so he couldn't bear to throw it away even if he had not finished it. He quickly handed the steamed bun to Bien Yuanji, who was stunned for a second and almost fell into the water again. Mao quickly supported him and pulled him to sit on a rock at the side. Eat here. After stuffing the steamed bun into Bien Yuanji's hands, Mao went to wash his clothes. Bien Yuanji was startled. He wanted to stop him, but when he saw the steamed bun in his hand, he couldn't help but gulp. He looked at Cat again, then at the steamed bun. After a few times, he finally lowered his head and took a bite. After he finished eating, Mao finished washing most of the clothes. He rubbed the dirty parts and soaked the lingeries in the water. Anyway, it was impossible to tell if he had washed them or not. Let's go, I'll send you back. Don't worry, I'll just walk to the door. I won't go in. Mao smiled at him. His smile was very funny, and Bien Yuanji lowered his guard. After sending him to the Gu family's door, Mao left. When he returned to the village chief's house, he happened to see Ashu walking out with a gloomy expression. He scolded the village chief loudly. Damn it, I only want to settle down and you charge me so much money. Why don't you rob me? It's not like I only have a place like your Gu village to choose from. Do you really think this place is in high demand? Some old fart is already so old, yet he's still so greedy. I want settled down here. After saying that, he ignored the cries behind him. When he saw Mao come over, he gave him a look and the two of them left. Shu sat on the mule cart and said excitedly, "You don't know, but this Chief Gu is really a talent. Do you know what he did?" Chapter 307. Took a concubine. Shu tried to keep him in suspense, but after a long time, Mao didn't say anything. He couldn't help but turn around. Only then did he realize that Mao's expression was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. As they knew each other well, Shu quickly guessed something. He nudged him and asked softly, "What's wrong? Didn't you go to inquire about the Gu family? It didn't go well? Let's talk about it when we get back." Mao shook his head and shook the reins violently. The mule cart immediately sped up. The two of them entered Jiangyu County before the city gate closed. When they went to the inn where Gu Yundong was, they saw that she and Shao Qingyuan were still waiting. The few of them were talking in Shao Qingyuan's room. Madame Yang was also there, but she was sitting alone in the corner, completing a puzzle. Just now, Go watched her interestedly and asked her a few questions, making Madame Yang extremely happy. She taught him how to solve puzzles like she was teaching a child. Shu was the first to speak. "I pretended to go to Gu village to settle down and went to Chief Gus' house. Good Lord, that old man is black-hearted. He actually said that it's not easy to settle down with so many people in Gu village. He asked me for 10 taels of silver to smooth things over. Later on, he said that an acre of homestead costs 10 taels of silver, and so does the wasteland. Does he think I'm stupid? The entire Yongning prefecture is short of people now. He should be paying me money for me to settle down. He's so shameless." Speaking of this, he was still a little angry. Although he had pretended to be dissatisfied and left in the end, when he really chatted with that Gu person, his dissatisfaction had reached its peak. This shameless thing. By the way, that old man also escaped and has just returned. Although he suffered a little this time, he's in good spirits. Shu calmed down and became mysterious again. He said with a hint of gossip, "This old man is old but still strong. He actually brought a woman back and took that woman as his concubine." Pfft. Cough, cough. Gu Yundong choked on his tea. Shao Qingyuan quickly patted her back. Cat and the others looked at their actions and lowered their heads in tacit understanding. Gu Yundong wiped his mouth and asked in disbelief, "Concubine? Gu Gang is 50 years old, right?" He was already 50 years old. Many people who were 32 or 33 years old could already be grandfathers now. He could be a great-grandfather at 50 years old. "He's exactly 50 this year," Shu said. "That woman is only 19 years old. I heard that she lost her parents on the way to escape. She almost died alone by the roadside. At that time, it was Gu Gang's 16-year-old eldest grandson who took a fancy to her and brought her along. In the end, Gu Gang intercepted her. However, he promised to find a better one for his eldest grandson, so his grandson didn't make a fuss. On the other hand, his wife is cursing at home every day." Gu Yundong was full of admiration for Gu Gang. She knew that this person was a selfish person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. She did not expect him to be so shameless. As Shu spoke, he shook his head. "But I don't think that concubine likes Gu Gang at all. There's even a hint of disgust in her eyes. But she's also a scheming person. When I was in the Gu family, she caused trouble for Gu Gang twice. The Gu family couldn't tell. If not for the fact that he was knowledgeable and had met many two-faced fellows on the streets, coupled with the fact that he was an outsider, he would not have been able to tell. Gu Yundong knew that a 19-year-old young lady would not be interested in a 50-year-old man. What did she want from him? He had no money, no face, and no good temper. He was just a useless old thing. She looked at Mao. "What about the Gu family?" Chapter 308. Remembered by the county magistrate, Mao pursed his lips and looked at her hesitantly. After a while he said, "I saw Bian Yuanji. He is having a hard time." Gu Yundong took a sip of water. "Tell me." I'm mentally prepared. She knew very well what the Gu family was like. Amao told her everything about Bian Yuanji, whom he had met when he entered the village, and what the two of them had said. He told her about the kid's fear and his jobs in the Gu family. Gu Yundong was not the only one who was livid. Ashu, Ago, and Aju were equally indignant. Although they had lived a hard life and were used to seeing the fickleness of human nature, that was because they had no relatives or friends. When their parents and grandparents were still alive, even if they did not treat them well, they would not be so mean. Moreover, they still had brothers to take care of each other now. Gu Yundong exhaled softly and tightened her grip on the cup. Aju stood up. Why don't we just sneak into Gu village and steal him? That's right. The Gu family doesn't care about him anyway. That kid's been through a lot there. These people are no good. Only Amao sat there and didn't speak. Shao Qingyuan glanced at him and asked, "Why did the Gu family take him in back then?" As soon as he said this, everyone was stunned. That's right. Since the Gu family disliked this child so much, why did they accept him after Ding Jincheng gave him to them? Bian Mulan was entrusted to the Ding family. Amao then said, the Gu family really didn't want to take him in. At that time, it was Ding Jincheng's parents who abandoned the child at the entrance of the Gu family. Old Gu didn't even look at him. It was so cold at that time. Bian Yuanji froze at the door for the entire night. Someone in the Gu village couldn't stand it anymore and brought him home to drink hot water. However, it was impossible for them to take in the child. At that time, it was difficult for anyone. Fortunately, the newly appointed county magistrate of Jiangyu County happened to travel incognito and went to various villages to learn about the people's livelihood. The county magistrate bumped into Bian Yuanji, whose face had turned red from the cold. He thought that Gu village was too difficult, so he asked a few more questions and finally understood the situation. The county magistrate got angry at that moment. Many people died in Yongning Prefecture because of the famine. This was really a time to develop manpower. The new emperor encouraged widows to remarry and have more children. It was not easy for Gu village to have a child who survived the disaster. He had blood family and was close to his maternal grandfather's family, but they refused to take him in and watched him freeze to death. He called the Gu family and the Ding family over. After repeated questioning and weighing, he finally asked the Gu family to take in this child. Therefore, Bian Yuanji was remembered by the county magistrate. If he suddenly disappeared, both the Gu family and the other people in the Gu village would be worried about being punished by the county magistrate. Who knew how big the matter would be? Moreover, Bian Yuanzi's household registration had already fallen into the Gu family. If he was taken away just like that, he would become an unregistered person and it would be very troublesome in the future. If they wanted to bring him out, they had to start from other sources. When Ashu and the others heard this, they were a little dejected. Was it so difficult? Why don't we give some money to those people from the Gu family? Amao slapped him. What bad idea did you come up with? It's obvious that that family is greedy. They might not even give him to you even if you offer the money. Then what do we do? Shao Qingyuan looked at Gu Yundong, who had been silent. Do you have an idea? Chapter 309. Just get him back righteously. Gu Yundong was indeed thinking. We can't steal him. We can't use money. Then we might as well get him back fair and square. Amao and the other three's eyes lit up. How? Get someone to ask the Gu family for him. Who? Gu Yundong smiled. Ding Jincheng. The few of them looked at each other, and their eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, the Ding family didn't want the child back then. What if the Ding family took the child back? The Gu family was afraid that the county magistrate would punish them, but the child would be raised by the Ding family. When the county magistrate remembered and asked them, they would be able to explain. It's just that Ding Jincheng might not agree, right? Shao Qingyuan clenched his fists. Just beat him up. Amao and the other three shuddered in unison. When they thought of how Shao Qingyuan had interrogated them back then, they immediately felt that this was nothing. Ding Jincheng would definitely agree. It's late today. Well, look for him at the Ding residence tomorrow. Gu Yundong stood up. All right, rest. The four of them left the room one after another and returned to their rooms. Gu Yundong saw that Madame Yang had finished piecing together the puzzle and was just sitting there alone, thinking about something. She immediately walked over and asked softly, "Mother, what's wrong?" Yuanqi. I'm a little familiar with this name. However, she couldn't remember him even after thinking for a long time. Gu Yundong smiled and put the things away for her before leading her away. As they walked, she asked, "Mother, do you still remember eldest aunt?" Feng. Older Aunt Gus' original name was Gu Dafeng, very similar to Gu Dajiang and Gu Da's names. It could be seen how randomly old Gu gave them names back then. Yes, Yuanji is the youngest son of eldest aunt. Madame Yang's eyes widened. I remember. Actually, she had also heard Yuanji's space name yesterday, but her attention had been on Gu Dajiang and she hadn't thought about it carefully. Gu Yundong brought her back to her room, but she could not fall asleep on the bed. In the middle of the night, she suddenly heard a soft knock on the door. She looked at Madame Yang and sat up. When she opened the door, she saw Shao Qingyuan standing outside. "I'll go to Gu village tomorrow morning," Shao Qingyuan said. Gu Yundong looked down and suddenly smiled. "You've thought of that too? Okay." Shao Qingyuan's heart suddenly raced when he saw her like this. How could he be so smart? He already knew what he was going to do before she even said anything. Was this feeling like what others said? That their hearts were connected? Actually, ever since the two of them met again in Yongning Prefecture, even though they didn't say anything in detail, their way of interacting had changed slightly. Shao Qingyuan could feel the change in her attitude, and this change made his eyes burn more and more. "Do you have any money on you?" Gu Yundong asked, as if she was about to give him banknotes. "If that woman is not easy to deal with, then forget it. I don't care about her." "I know. I have enough money. Don't worry. He would take care of it." After all, not only did he have to ask old Gu for Bian Yuanji, but he also had to teach Gu Gang a lesson. After saying that, the two of them went to sleep respectively. The next morning, Shao Qingyuan left the inn. When Kat and the others arrived, only Gu Yundong was accompanying Madame Yang for breakfast. The four of them quickly finished their porridge and said to Gu Yundong, "Miss, the four of us will accompany you." "No need." Gu Yundong peeled an orange for Madame Yang, wiped her hands and said, "Dog, pig, TTT accompany me. You two went to the Gu village yesterday. Rest in the inn today and help me take care of my mother." The four of them immediately agreed. Gu Yundong packed her things and left the inn. However, she did not expect to see Ding Jincheng not long after she left the house. Chapter 310:1 Won't break your leg, alright? There was no need to go to his village to look for him now. Gu Yundong led Go and Ding Jincheng towards Ding Jincheng. Ding Jincheng had listened to Madame Hu and came to apologize to Miss Jiang. For this, he had brought an extra 100 copper coins. When he passed by the pastry shop, he would buy her some sweets. Madame Hu originally wanted to follow them, but unfortunately, she had a stomachache when she woke up in the morning and didn't even leave the house. However, at this moment, Ding Jincheng was a little hesitant. Miss Jiang was indeed not bad. She was good-looking and from the county city. Although her family was not very rich, she was still much better than the woman Aunt Chao had set him up with. However, he still missed Bien Mulan. After all, they had been husband and wife for 4 years, and Mulan was an understanding, gentle, and virtuous person. Although she had never given birth to a child for him, she was really good to him. When he saw Miss Jiang, he couldn't help but compare the two of them. After comparing them, he felt that this Miss Jiang was from the county after all. She gave off a superior feeling, making him feel uncomfortable. Therefore, although Ding Jincheng had arrived at the county city, he had been loitering on the street not far from the Jiang family's entrance for a long time. When Gu Yundong stood in front of him, he suddenly came back to his senses. He didn't know if it was because of guilt or something else, but he turned around and left. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was forced back by Go. Ding Jincheng took a few steps back and stood in front of Gu Yundong. He was clearly a head taller than her, but his shoulders were hunched as if he had been abused. "I don't want to remarry. I just came here for a walk." His explanation was a little revealing. Gu Yundong frowned. "Who cares if you remarry or not? If anyone had to care, it would be her uncle and aunt. She looked at Ding Jincheng and said impatiently, I have something to discuss with you. What? Ding Jincheng was stunned. Gu Yundong said, Go to old Gus' house and bring Yuanji out. Bring Bien Yuanji out? Ding Jincheng said awkwardly, I'm afraid that won't do. He's the Gu family's grandson to begin with, so he should be raised by the Gu family. I'm not related to him now, so it won't be right for me to ask for him. Gu Yundong sneered. The Gu family is raising him? Don't tell me you don't know what kind of life he's living in the Gu family? Ding Jincheng lowered his head. But that's also the Gu family's fault. Gu Yundong gave him a hard kick. Are you going or not? If not, it'll break your legs. Was he a man? Why did her cousin marry such a person in the first place? Aju snorted at the side. Hey, why are you so stupid? She's only asking you to bring him out and move his household register out. She didn't ask you to raise him. Ding Jincheng suddenly realized that she would definitely raise Bien Yuanji herself. Judging from Gu Yundong's current state, she probably did not want to return to the Gu family or have anything to do with them. Moreover, that man was dressed so elegantly that day. With such a rich man, it would definitely not be difficult for her to raise Bien Yuanji. Except, what if the Gu family found out that he had lied to them and came back to settle scores with him? Gu Yundong said, Ding Jincheng, you promised my cousin to take good care of him. Not only did you fail, you even pushed him into the fire pit. Aren't you afraid that my cousin will come to settle scores with you in the middle of the night? Ding Jincheng shuddered. I'll go. That's more like it. Let's go. Gu Yundong turned around and left. Ding Jincheng hurriedly followed after her. As soon as the two of them left, a figure happened to turn around not far away. She narrowed her eyes as she watched Ding Jincheng walk further and further away. Chapter 311. Having a lover, Gu Yundong walked so fast that Ding Jincheng had to take large strides to catch up with her. Are we going now? How long do you want to wait? It's still early. I have a carriage over there. It will take less than an hour to get to Gu village. It's not even lunchtime yet. But I'm not ready yet. Gu Yundong suddenly stopped and turned to look at him. What else do you need to prepare? By the time you're done, Yuanji will be half dead. Ding Jincheng immediately didn't dare to make a sound. B0x. Calm. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. Don't tell me you're trying to stall for time and take the opportunity to escape. No. You know where my home is. I can't escape. I'm glad you know. Gu Yundong continued to walk forward. When she reached the carriage, she immediately chased him up. Ding Jincheng had never sat in such a good carriage before. For some reason, he was actually a little happy. He did not dare to move and sat down obediently. However, he was a little puzzled. This girl from the Gu family seemed to be different from before. But it made sense. After marrying a rich man, she would have confidence and there would be someone to back her up. Dog drove the carriage. However, just as they left the city gate, an ox cart brushed past them and entered the county. The person who came was Madame Hu. She was still worried that her son would say something he shouldn't and anger the girl away. Hence, as soon as she felt slightly better, she immediately got on the ox cart of her fellow villagers and rushed over. Madame Hu alighted from the ox cart and went straight to the Jiang family. Unexpectedly, as soon as she reached the entrance of the Jiang family, she bumped into Miss Jiang, and there was no sign of her son beside her. Madame Hu thought to herself, oh no, did he mess it up? Just as she was thinking about it, Miss Jiang also saw her. Madame Hu quickly squeezed out a smile and went up to her. Miss Jiang, what a coincidence. Did you see our Jin Chung? He said that he wanted to apologize to you early in the morning. He even said that he wanted to queue up to buy pastries for you. Before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Miss Jiang. Auntie, don't joke around. No wonder he doesn't like anyone. He already has a lover. The girl is young and beautiful. Your Ding Jincheng is quite lucky. After saying that, she snorted and turned to enter the door, closing it with a bang. Madame Hu wanted to step forward, but she was almost hit in the nose and could only take 2 steps back. Jincheng had a lover? Who was it? Why didn't this kid tell her earlier that he had a lover? She was young and beautiful. What? How could his mother not let him marry her? Madame Hu muttered in frustration. No, she had to go back. When that kid returned, she would ask him what was going on. Madame Hu walked back to Shangbei village in the ox cart. When they were about to reach Gu village, they saw a carriage parked there from afar. She did not dare to look too long. Those who had carriages were all rich people. Who knew what kind of person with a temper was sitting inside? Madame Hu got off the ox cart. Unexpectedly, as soon as she entered Shangbei village, she saw a person from the same village say, "Auntie, why did your Jin Chung go to Gu village? What's so strange about going to Gu village?" Madame Hu didn't mind. "My Jin Chung is kind-hearted. He goes to visit Mulan's younger brother from time to time. He'll be back soon." Madame Hu was right about this. Ding Jincheng would go to the Gu village once a month. It was unknown if it was because of his conscience or for his reputation, but every time he went to Madame Hu, he was not allowed to carry gifts. Chapter 312. I'll raise him because of this. Every time Ding Jincheng visited him, Yuanji would not eat that night. Madame Zhao said that Ding Jincheng had brought him food, so he must have hidden it, although she never found anything. However, this made them even angrier. Sometimes they didn't even give him breakfast the next day. Madame Hu felt that it was fine if Jin Chung just went to see the child. This time, she didn't think much of it either, but as soon as she entered the house, what Miss Jiang had said suddenly flashed through her mind. She was young and beautiful, but Jin Chung didn't tell his mother about her. B0X. Kamo no, wasn't there one in Gu village? That was Gu Gang's new concubine. Madame Hu scolded the vixen fiercely. No wonder Jin Chung always ran to the Gu village. Did he hook up with a married woman? Damn it, why did he fall for that woman? Madame Hu couldn't stay any longer. No, she had to quickly bring Ding Jincheng back. He couldn't be ruined by that woman. Thinking of this, she got up and left quickly. At this moment, Ding Jincheng had already arrived at the entrance of Old Gus' house. Bian Yuanji was the first to see him, and his face instantly turned pale. He knew that he would not have dinner every time his ex-brother-in-law came. He had clearly told this guy several times not to come again. This guy had also agreed last time. Why did he still come? Bian Yuanji was in despair as he heard his second aunt's mocking voice. "Hey, isn't this Yuanzi's brother-in-law? What's wrong? You're here to see Yuanji again? Since you care so much about Yuanji, why don't you take him away and raise him yourself?" Ding Jincheng swallowed his saliva. He had put down the carriage a kilometer away from the Gu village and came alone. Gu Yundong and the rest were still in the carriage. Hearing Gu Da's wife's mocking voice, he immediately agreed with her. "All right, I'll take him away. Our family will raise him in the future." Madame Jia was stunned. The other Gu family members who came out were also stunned. "Are you serious?" Ding Jincheng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "Of course it's true. Look at how badly you've tortured him. I really can't stand it anymore. They'll take him away today. From now on, he's a member of my Ding family. I promised his sister to take good care of him." Bian Yuanji was a bit surprised when he heard that, but now he became numb. Actually, there was no difference whether it was in the Gu family or the Ding family. He stood silently in the corner, as if everything had nothing to do with him. However, Ding Jincheng looked at him. "Yuanji, are you willing to come with me?" He thought that Bian Yuanji was willing to do so. After all, he often came to visit him and old Gu would beat and scold him. At least he would comfort and encourage him. He might be the only person who treated this kid well. Bian Yuanji raised his head and glanced at him indifferently. This was his brother-in-law. When his sister was still alive, he had treated him quite well. It was not until they were separated from their parents when they fled that the Ding family despised the siblings for being a burden. He had heard Madame Hu say with his own ears that his sister was a hen who couldn't lay eggs. It was fine if she couldn't carry the Ding family's children, but she even had to bring a burden. At that time, his brother-in-law did not dare to say anything. He just sat at the side with his head lowered, as if he was afraid that this scolding would affect him. Bian Yuanji felt that this was not the behavior of a husband. He defended his sister, but his sister wouldn't let him stand up for her. She said that it was just a few words of scolding, and she wouldn't lose anything. Now, this person who could not make the decision at home said that he wanted to raise him. Chapter 313. Gu Gang is here. Bian Yuanji lowered his head again. He always felt that it was impossible. Ding Jincheng was stunned when he saw that he did not agree immediately. On the other hand, the people from the Gu family became smug. Madame Zhao snorted coldly. Ding Jincheng, what are you thinking? Back then, it was your family who didn't want him and left him at our door. Now, you want to go back? Dream on. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can take or abandon him as you wish? Ding Jincheng instantly panicked. He thought that things would go smoothly. After all, the Gu family did not like Yuanji. B0x. Calm, you don't even treat him as your biological grandson. Since you don't like him, why are you still raising him? Wouldn't it be a good opportunity for me to take him away? Who doesn't treat him as a biological grandson? Gu Chuanzong suddenly scolded. Don't spout sh*t everywhere and ruin our Gu family's reputation. I, Gu Chuanzong, can raise my own grandson. I don't need an outsider like you. Ding Jincheng wanted to grab the dirt on the ground and throw it at his face. The most shameless person was this old man. That's right. Gude leaned against the side and said lazily, Hey, you have to be careful with your words. Yuanji is doted on by us uncles, aunts, cousins, and is very happy. Why are you saying that we don't have any feelings? You don't have it in the first place. Ding Jincheng was furious. This was a well-known fact, yet they were still lying through their teeth. At this moment, the people from Gu village heard the commotion and came over to watch it. When they heard that Ding Jincheng wanted Bian Yuanji back, they were surprised that the Gu family didn't agree. The patriarch, Gu Gang, also came over, accompanied by a young and weak woman. He was the patriarch, so he naturally stood in the middle as soon as he came over. He frowned and looked at the two of them. What's going on? You're all living too well. Are you starting to look for trouble? How can that be? Patriarch, it's all because this Ding Jincheng went crazy and suddenly came to our place to take Yuanji away. Madame Zhao reported him first. Before Gu Gang could speak, his concubine, Madame Shen, covered her mouth and laughed. Why should he take her away? She's a child of the Gu family. How can we let an outsider take her away? Madame Zhao pursed her lips. She did not like this vixen. At such a young age, she was so indecent and followed someone who could be his grandfather. She even dressed up all day and led the children of their village astray. However, in front of the patriarch, Madame Zhao did not dare to say anything. She even had to lick her cheeks and say, Isn't that so? If others find out, what will they say about our Gu family? MDM Shen nodded. This child is already 7 years old, right? In a few more years, he will be able to marry a wife with some betrothal gifts. Our Gu village will have more people and everyone will be happy. You people from Shangbei village, don't come and join in the fun. Go home and live your lives well. What you said makes sense. Clan leader Gu looked very happy. He felt that bringing this concubine out was a great honor. However, Madame Zhao frowned. What betrothal gifts? It's not easy for us to raise him, yet we're preparing betrothal gift for him? He has his own hands and feet. He can earn it himself. If he can't earn it, then don't get married. That's his life. MDM Shen was a little surprised. You're not going to give him betrothal gifts? That's impossible. The county magistrate said it himself. Have you forgotten? No way. It's such an important thing. What did the county magistrate say? They really couldn't remember and panicked. Chapter 314. Shun's assistants. MDM Shen shook her head and sighed. The county magistrate said that there are too few people in Yongning village now. It's lucky that this child survived the famine. We should nurture him well. When he grows up, he will offer some betrothal gifts and marry a good girl. He will give birth to more children to increase the population of Yongning Prefecture. Why? Have you forgotten such an important thing? Well, the members of the Gu family looked at each other. The county magistrate did talk a lot back then, and he vaguely mentioned getting married and having children. But the county magistrate was a well-educated man. His words were full of twists and turns. One simple sentence had to get so complicated that it made them dizzy. Shen clicked her tongue. Although the county magistrate might have said it casually, he might remember it at some point. I think we should take his words to heart. I even told my husband to pay some money for the wedding. The county magistrate will praise us later. B0X. Concubine was a little confused. When did he say that he was going to offer money? He had always been a money grubber. How could he give away money? Frowning, Gu Gang looked at his concubine. Shen saw that the people from the Gu family were discussing this matter softly and did not notice her. She quickly whispered to Gu Gang, "Husband, why don't you understand? We can't let that child continue to stay in the Gu family. Look at how the Gu family treats him. He doesn't have enough to eat or wear. He's dressed like a beggar and they even let him work outside every day." Gu Gang was stunned for a moment before he heard her continue. "Husband, you're the chief. What will outsiders think of you when they see that the children in our village are living such a hard life? What will they think about the entire village? Do we still have our reputation? Do we still have our image? Look at the young man who came yesterday and was about to settle down here. Didn't he say that he met Bien Yuanji at the entrance of the village? If this child continues to stay in our village, it will be a disgrace to the Gu village and to you. If no one comes here to settle down in the future, where will you get the money?" Gu Gang's body trembled, and he suddenly came back to his senses. Bien Yuanji walked around the village in shabby clothes all day long, which made Gu Gang's eyes hurt. If outsiders saw him, they would think that his village was full of beggars. Seeing the change in his expression, Shen continued, "So, we can't let Bien Yuanji stay in our village. If the county magistrate really remembers him and finds out that he's living such a hard life, he might blame the Gu family. However, as the head of the clan, you can't escape being scolded. Now that Ding Jincheng is finally willing to take the child away, just let him. When the county magistrate asks later, you can find a beautiful excuse and you might be praised." Gu Gang felt that what she said made too much sense. As expected, he had taken in the right concubine. She was much smarter than that woman at home. If not for the fact that they were in public, he would have hugged her and kissed her. Shen pinched him. Gu Gang cleared his throat and said, "I did say that I wanted to prepare a gift for this child. Just one tael of silver. Old Gu, you have to find a good woman for this child. Just give her more betrothal gifts. It will be embarrassing if word gets out. It shows that you value the county magistrate's words and bring good luck to our Gu village." When Madame Zhao heard that they still had to pay so much money, she immediately refused and hurriedly said, "Patriarch, actually, our family is really poor. Look at how many children there are in my second and third son's families. Yuanji can't eat well or wear warm clothes here. Since the Ding family wants it, let's give it to the Ding family." When Ding Jincheng heard this, he did not expect things to take a turn for the better. A smile instantly appeared on his face. Chapter 3:15. Taken away, Ding Jincheng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Now, as long as he took this child away and changed his household register, he would be able to live up to Milan's entrustment. However, just as he was about to take Bien Yuanzi's hand, someone rushed out from the other side. "Ding Jincheng, how dare you!" Everyone suddenly turned around and saw Madame Hu running over with disheveled hair. As soon as she came over, she pulled Ding Jincheng back. After pulling him out of old Gus' house, she slapped him hard. "You're crazy. You actually want to bring this little bastard back. You can't even raise yourself. Why are you being a kind person and raising him? You're really crazy, crazy, crazy. Let me tell you, if you dare to bring him back, I'll beat him to death." B0X. Ding Jincheng's expression changed drastically. "Mother, what are you doing? Let go. Yuanji is living too hard a life here. I promised Mulan to take good care of him. Don't cause trouble." "You promised what?" "That little bastard was assigned to the old Gu family by the county magistrate. How dare you disobey the county magistrate's order? Do you want to die? Go back and don't come to the Gu village again or I'll break your legs." Madame Hu was about to go crazy from anger. She thought that he had taken a fancy to that little b asterisk tch and ran over here. She didn't expect him to adopt the little bastard for that Bien Mulan who was infertile. She couldn't tell that her son was a devoted person. No wonder he didn't even like Miss Jiang. Bien Mulan, that b asterisk tch, still wanted to seduce her son's soul even after she died. When old Gu saw the sudden change in the situation, they were a little shocked. At this moment, they finally reacted and hurriedly went to stop her. Sister-in-law who, wait a moment. What's wrong with you? You came and went as you pleased. Do you think we're monkeys? It was Madame Jia who spoke. She reached out and blocked Madame Hu. Madame Hu was taller and stronger than her. She reached out and pushed her aside. Screw you. Tell that to the county magistrate if you dare. If the county magistrate says that he wants us to raise that bastard, he'll take him away without hesitation. Madame Jia immediately choked. The others present were also stunned. It was one thing for the Ding family to take Bien Yuanji away voluntarily, but the Gu family couldn't force them. Madame Hu snorted and pulled Ding Jincheng away. The latter was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. Why did his mother come all of a sudden? Mother, I'm not leaving. I want to raise Yuanji. Mulan sent me a dream last night and asked me to take good care of Yuanji. I can't. Shut up. I knew you were thinking about that little b asterisk tch. Why did she visit you in a dream? Do you think I'm easy to deceive? Madame Hu shouted outside. Old Ding, why are you still standing there? Hurry up and pull this embarrassing thing home. Madame Hu had pulled Mr. Ding over with her. However, when they arrived at the village entrance, Madame Hu heard that Ding Jincheng wanted to bring the child home, so she ran over quickly. At this moment, Madame Hu called out to Father Ding. Father Ding was a burly and strong man. No matter how much Ding Jincheng didn't want to leave, he was pulled away. The others looked at each other. Gu Gang lowered his head and quietly asked MDM Shen, "What should we do now?" MDM Shen was also a little confused. She glanced at a corner without a trace and said in a low voice, "Let's wait and see." The most important part of taking Bien Yuanji away was Ding Jincheng. Now that he was gone, how could they continue? The Gu family was especially furious. When they saw Bien Yuanji, they glared at him fiercely. If not for the fact that the onlookers were still around, Madame Zhao would have gone forward to hit him. Chapter 316. Unprofessional, however, when she passed by him, Madame Zhao still snorted. There's no need to eat tonight. Bien Yuanji slightly lowered his head. He knew that every time his brother-in-law came, he would have no dinner. Hence, he did not say a word and just stood there motionless with his head lowered. This time, even Gu Chuanzong was a little angry. He had made a fool of himself for nothing, so when he walked to his side, he said, "You don't have to eat tomorrow. You're just causing trouble for the family." Bien Yuanji didn't want to cry, but he couldn't control himself. B0x. Calm. It was fine for Madame Zhao to scold him. Her mother said that she was not his biological grandmother, but his grandfather was different. Why didn't he treat him as his grandson? The onlookers gradually dispersed. Watching Bien Yuanji standing alone at the gate of the courtyard, they all let out a sigh. Actually, so what if Ding Jincheng took him away? It would be strange if Madame Hu, that shrew, treated him well. He was afraid that his life would be worse than living in the Gu family. After all, the Gu family were his relatives. Gradually, no one was left at the entrance of Old Gus' house, except for Bien Yuanji. Although it was already spring, his clothes were still very thin and cold. Suddenly, a person stood in front of him. He was tall and big, as if he was blocking the wind in front of him. Bien Yuanji raised his reddened eyes and a white steamed bun appeared in front of him. He was stunned for a moment before he heard the man in front of him say, "Eat. I'll warm you up. Hold on for another day." After saying that, he stuffed the steamed bun into his arms and strode away. Bien Yuanji was stunned. The white steamed bun was even bigger and whiter than the one the man gave him yesterday. It looked delicious. He couldn't help but take a big bite. Delicious. Wiping his tears, Bien Yuanji turned around and ate the white steamed bun in big mouthfuls. Then he wiped his mouth and smiled. That was great. A steamed bun could last him until tomorrow. These 2 days he always met good people who gave him steamed buns to eat. Shao Qingyuan, who was standing far away, saw the relaxed smile on his face. He then turned around and left Gu village in large strides. Gu Yundong was still in the carriage. As it was a little far away, she did not see Madame Hu and Father Ding, who had arrived at Gu village from the other side to take Ding Jincheng away. It was only when Shao Qingyuan came over and told her the process that she frowned fiercely. Go and Zhu, who were standing outside the carriage, also kicked the tree trunk at the side angrily. Why did that woman come out to cause trouble? Miss, what should we do next? Why don't we trick Madame Hu out and let Ding Jincheng finish the matter before letting her go back? How can we do that? We still have to get the child's household register out. It won't be a short time. Gu Yundong also shook her head. After Madame Hu finds out about what happened today, she will definitely stay by Ding Jincheng's side all day long. We won't be able to deceive her. Then what do we do? Gu Yundong thought for a moment and tapped her fingers lightly on the windowsill. After a while, she raised her eyebrows. Got it. What is it? Go and Zhu hurriedly approached. Gu Yundong smiled. I'm a professional in acting. Madame Hu did not believe that Ding Jincheng dreamed of her cousin, then let her see her in person. Let's go to town first and buy some things we need. This time she couldn't use the space. The town was close, and the carriage arrived not long after. Gu Yundong bought a lot of miscellaneous items. Then, she parked the carriage beside an inconspicuous small mountain ditch by the roadside of Shangbei village. Then, she asked Shao Qingyuan, Go, and a pig to get off while she fiddled with the items on the carriage for a long time. Chapter 317. Wetting her pants after a long time, Gu Yundong drew the curtain. Unexpectedly, when they showed their faces, Go and Zhu took a few steps back and shouted, Ghost! Gu Yundong glared at them. Who are you calling? Her glare made the two of them shiver in fear. Shao Qingyuan was still very calm. He went forward and sized her up. I can't see your original appearance at all. B0X. Calm, it's fine. Anyway, ghosts are the same. Madame Hu won't be able to recognize if I'm my cousin or not. Her hair was down and her face was pale. Blood flowed from the corners of her eyes and nostrils, and there were heavy dark circles around her eyes. Coupled with her bright red lips, anyone who saw her would be frightened to death. How could they recognize her? If Madame Hu really had the guts, Gu Yundong would admire her. Gu Yundong had already looked at himself in the mirror in the carriage and expressed his satisfaction. Only then did she look at Go and Zhu. The two of them slowly leaned against each other, wanting to hug each other for warmth. It was true. When Lady Gu looked at him, they felt as if their souls were about to leave their bodies. Gu Yundong glanced at them. It's your turn. Oh, our turn? What are we going to do? Gu Yundong took out a set of things from the carriage. You'll pretend to be the black and white ghosts. No, they wanted to stay away from her. Now, she looked terrifying even during the day. They even had to be by her side at night. They were so scared that they peed their pants. Gu Yundong did not care about them. She made a tall hat to increase their height and make them oppressing. Coupled with the long tongue and dark circles under their eyes, they looked good. After dressing up, the group went straight to Shangbei village. When it was dark, they got out of the carriage and went straight to the Ding family. Go and Zhu had adapted to Gu Yundong's attire and found it interesting. Shao Qingyuan stood in the courtyard to keep watch. Gu Yundong went to Madame Hu and Father Ding's room and stood by the bed with Go and Zhu, who were acting as the black and white ghosts. She reached out and patted Madame Hu's face. Madame Hu frowned and waved her hand. She turned around and continued sleeping. Gu Yundong frowned and asked Go to wake her up. However, Madame Hu was sleeping like a dead pig. No matter how they shouted or patted, she couldn't wake up from the deep sleep. Zhu waved his hand. Let me do it. He went up and pulled Madame Hu's hairs out, 2 at a time. Gu Yundong was speechless. What if you make her bald? Fortunately, this method worked. Madame Hu gasped in pain and rubbed her eyes. Unexpectedly, when she opened her eyes, 3 terrifying faces suddenly appeared in front of her. Madame Hu screamed and quickly crawled back, pressing down on Father Ding's finger. It was so painful that he suddenly woke up too. Gu Yundong shushed her. Don't scream. Madame Hu instantly felt like she was being strangled. She stared at the three people in front of her with wide eyes and trembling hands. Mr. Ding Tet Father Ding was so frightened that his face turned pale and he could not say a word. Gu Yundong could not help but sniffle. Why did it smell like urine? She glanced at Madame Hu and wanted to leave, but she held her breath and stayed. Mother, she called out faintly. Madame Hu shivered again. You, who are you? I don't know you. Boo-hoo. Why don't you know me? In Mulan. I died so tragically. Mulan t. Why are you looking for me? You're dead. But I didn't kill you. Boo-hoo, let me go. Chapter 318. This is how people die. Father Ding, who was standing at the side, probably felt that he was a man. At least he mustered up a little courage and said fearfully, Yes, Mulan. Back then, you were the one who said that you would save your share of rations for your brother to eat. That's why you starved to death. We only said a few words to you and didn't force you. Gu Yundong was stunned. So there were such twists and turns. It was obvious what kind of state Bien Mulan was in to make such a decision back then. The Ding couple had been complaining about her because she had been married for 4 years without getting pregnant and had to take another child with her on the way to escape. It was obvious how unpleasant the couple's words were. Intellectually, Gu Yundong knew that this was Bien Mulan's choice. But as Bien Mulan's cousin, she really wanted to strangle the two people in front of her. A go tugged at her from behind. Gu Yundong then continued, Yes, I was the one who voluntarily saved the rations for my younger brother. But what did I say before I died? I asked you to take good care of Yunji for me. You agreed. Did you send my younger brother, whom I exchanged my life for, to the old Gu family to be abused? B0X. The Ding couple was speechless. What could they say? They did agree back then, but wasn't Bien Mulan going to die at that time? Could they let her die with her eyes wide open? But neither of them dared to say it now, especially when Gu Yundong's tears of blood started to flow down slowly. The King of Hell said that my wish in this world had not been fulfilled. My obsession was too deep, and I could not be reincarnated. He asked me to come to the human realm to do my last thing. In the end, when I came here, I realized that you guys actually treated Yunji like this. My poor brother, his life is so bitter. She suddenly cried. Immediately after, a bowl that Madame Hu had placed by the windowsill suddenly fell to the ground and shattered. Madame Hu and Father Ding's faces turned pale. The two of them hugged each other tightly. With a bang, a small stool at the side fell over. Bam! The closet door opened by itself. Ago moved his fingers behind his back and quietly retracted the fishing lines that were tied to these things. But Madame Hu was already frightened. Mulan, we didn't do it on purpose. Boo-hoo, it was the county magistrate who made the decision. It had nothing to do with us. Gu Yundong's voice continued to sound ethereal. I don't care. He can't stay in the Gu family. He can't stay in the Gu family. He can't stay in the Gu family. All right. We won't let him stay in old Gus' house. Well, bring him back tomorrow morning. Really, don't come looking for us. Gu Yundong slowly looked at her and suddenly smiled. The moment her blood-red lips parted, she was so frightening that her hair stood on end. Even Ago and Aju, who were standing beside her, had to restrain themselves with all their might to prevent their legs from moving outwards. That's what you said. The husband and wife nodded repeatedly. We promised to bring him out. You go. Just go. Satisfied, Gu Yundong slowly turned around. Madame Hu was about to heave a sigh of relief when she suddenly turned around and continued to smile at her. By the way, there's something I forgot to say. What's the matter? Madame Hu was trembling with fear. She only hoped that this ghost would finish speaking and leave quickly. She didn't even dare to look up at her face. It turned out that people were like this after they died. Chapter 319. Picking someone up, Gu Yundong smiled again and opened her bloody mouth. Before Madame Hu almost fainted, she said, My younger brother's name is Bien Yunji, not little bastard. If I find out that you call him that next time, he'll come and take you away with me. Madam Hu nodded quickly. Gu Yundong's face suddenly bled from all 7 orifices. She opened her mouth and giggled. Even her teeth were covered in blood. Madam Hu had just quietly looked up when her eyes rolled back in fright and she fainted. Mr. Ding was stunned for a moment. Then he closed his eyes and fainted. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She gave Ah Go and Ah Zhu a look, and the 3 of them left silently and quickly. B0X. Calm Father Ding only opened one eye quietly when he could not feel any movement. There was no one in the room. The door was open, and only the wind was blowing in. He immediately went limp. His back was drenched in sweat, and he shivered violently when the wind blew. After a long time, he pushed Madam Hu away in disdain and got out of bed trembling. He walked to the door and planned to close it. Unexpectedly, he saw his son lying unconscious on the ground in the central room. She was shocked and thought that Bien Mulan had killed him. He hurriedly went forward to take a look and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, his son had just fainted. Father Ding quickly woke Ding Jincheng up and asked him what was going on. Ding Jincheng didn't know either. He rubbed his head and said with a frown, "I just heard Mother's loud cry and quickly came over to take a look. As soon as I walked to the central room, I was knocked out." Father Ding trembled and quickly told him what had happened. Ding Jincheng didn't quite believe it, but when he returned to his parents' room and saw the wet sheets on the bed, they were clearly frightened. The 2 of them quickly went forward and woke Madam Hu up. Madam Hu was still in shock. She grabbed Ding Jincheng's hand and said, "You must bring little Bien Yuanji back. You can't let him stay in the Gu family." "No." Ding Jincheng nodded repeatedly. None of them dared to sleep that night, because Madam Hu's bed was smelly and messy. In addition to the broken bowls and fallen stools on the ground, and the open wardrobe door, everything indicated the terrifying scene that had just happened. Hence, the 3 of them went to Ding Jincheng's room and waited until dawn, shivering. Then they changed their clothes and rushed to Gu Village. The people of Gu Village were about to go out to work when they saw the 3 members of the Ding family rushing over. What was going on? Was yesterday's incident not over yet? Some people who liked to join in the fun and were not important followed behind. When they saw that they were indeed going to Old Gus' house, they immediately became excited. Someone also went to inform Gu Gang. Not long after, the entrance of Old Gus' house was filled with people. When Gu Chuanzong came out and saw them, his expression immediately turned ugly. "What are you doing here?" "Grandpa, we're here to pick Yuanji up." Ding Jincheng took a step forward, his attitude exceptionally friendly and respectful. "Who's your grandpa?" Gu Chuanzong's face darkened. "Why? Do you want to take Yuanji away again? Yesterday you refused no matter what. Is there no end to your family's drama?" "That's right." Madame Zhao followed them out. "What do you take my Gu family for? Do you think you can say whatever you want? Get lost." Madame Hu was furious and wanted to pounce on Madame Zhao and scratch her face. Chapter 320. 5 taels of silver and he's yours. However, she could not do that. She even had to squeeze out a smile and apologize. "Uncle, Aunt, don't be angry. We weren't clear-headed yesterday, right? We went back and thought about it for the entire night. We felt that we had let Mulan down. Yuanji was entrusted to us by Mulan. We can't just leave him in the old Gu family. We feel guilty." The members of the Gu family acted as if they had heard a joke, especially Madame Jia. She leaned against the door and laughed hysterically. "Sister-in-law Hu, why are you acting like this every day? I don't think you feel guilty. Yesterday you said that you didn't want Yuanji. Today you came over to ask for him again. What if you say that you don't want him tomorrow? Who can stand you making a fuss like this?" "That's right. Our Gu family is very busy. We don't have time to mess around with you," Gu Dai said loudly. The 3 members of the Ding family did not look good. They secretly despised him in their hearts. "Busy? You Gu Dai are the laziest sloth in this village." Madame Hu suppressed the anger in her heart and said with a smile, No. I promise that after we take Yuanji away this time, we won't send him back." "Who would believe you?" Madam who was not someone who could be trusted. B0X. Calm, the third son of the Gu family, Gu Dahu, stroked his chin and suddenly said, Sister-in-law Hus change today is too strange. Is your family plotting something? Are you going to sell Yuanji? Madam Chong, the third daughter-in-law, asked softly. Bien Yuanji, who had just walked out of the courtyard, was stunned. His small body shook violently, and he barely stood against the wall. Madame Jia's eyes lit up when she heard that. She rushed to Madame Hu and said, Sister-in-law Hu, third sister-in-law is right? You want to sell Yuanji? Let me tell you that won't do. Yuanji has met the county magistrate. Can you bear the responsibility if you sell him? I'm not selling him. Who would believe you? Madame Jia snorted coldly. Then why are your words yesterday and today completely different? I told you. I felt guilty when I went back and thought about it. Who are you trying to fool? It's fine if you want to take Yuanji away. Give us some silver. We've helped you raise him for so long. You'll have to pay for his food, clothes, and accommodation. 5 taels, take him away. Madame Jia glanced at Gu Chuanzong. Seeing that he did not say anything, she thought that he had no objections. 5 taels of silver was not a small amount. At least for now, the Ding family could only take out this much. Bien Yuanji also looked at Gu Chuanzong. After a while, he finally walked to Gu Chuanzong's side. Grandpa, are you really? Gu Chuanzong frowned and sighed. Yuanji, it's not that I don't want to raise you, but you heard it yourself. It's your sister who entrusted you to the Ding family. If you leave with the Ding family, your sister will rest in peace. Your uncle and aunt have taken good care of you recently. It's only right for the Ding family to give them some money. Bien Yuanzi's heart turned cold as he let go of Gu Chuanzong's sleeve. I should have known. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Madame Hu was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She glared at Madame Jia and said, 5 taels of silver. Why don't you rob me? Are you giving it to me or not? If you don't give it, Yuanji won't be able to leave with you. Madame Hu gritted her teeth. This be asterisk tch. Jia Meizi, don't force me. If you force me, I will say anything. Madame Jia raised her eyebrows. Oh, you're threatening me? Tell me, let's see what you have to say. Madame Hu was furious. I'll tell them about the lousy, bad, and vicious things you did. Chapter 321. How was Madame Yang injured? What did I do? I Jia Meizi do things openly and honorably. Don't slander me. Madame Hu had never seen such a shameless person. You do things openly and honorably? Have you forgotten about Gu Dajiang's wife and sister-in-law? Do you want me to tell you? Madame Jia's expression changed, but the other's curiosity was piqued. Sister-in-law Hu, what's wrong with Gu Dajiang's wife? Isn't she a fool? Tell us, what did Jia Meizi do? Jia Meizi panicked. She took 2 steps forward and wanted to shut Madame Hu's mouth. However, Madame Chong took a step forward and said, My second sister-in-law has always done things with a clear conscience. Sister-in-law Hu, don't spout nonsense here. You're slandering my second sister-in-law and even bringing up my first sister-in-law. You have to give us these 5 taels of silver today. Otherwise, don't even think about taking Bien Yuanji away. Huh? A clear conscience? Madame Hu was so angry that she laughed. She pointed at Madame Jia and said, She, Jia Meizi, has a vicious heart. Back then, she was the one who smashed Gu Dajiang's wife by the river and pushed her into the water. I saw it with my own eyes. It was real. If not for that, would Gu Dajiang's wife have become stupid? As soon as she said this, there was silence. B0XO. Calm, everyone looked at Madame Jia and Madame Hu. Back then, didn't Madame Yang fall into the river? Was she pushed down? Madame Jia screamed and pounced forward. She immediately started fighting with Madame Hu. You're spouting feces and talking nonsense. I'll tear your mouth apart for slandering me. She was ruthless, and Madame Hu was not to be outdone. She was much stronger than Madame Jia. After a while, she rode on her and slapped her a few times. I'm slandering you? I saw it with my own eyes. I even saw you took away the stone that hit her head and found a place to bury it. Do you want me to take everyone and dig out that stone for you to see? I didn't. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. The two of them fought more and more fiercely. Madame Zhao was so angry that she scolded. What are you doing? How dare you hit someone at the entrance of my Gu family? Second brother, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and pull her away. Third sister-in-law, are you stupid? Why aren't you helping? Oh. Madame Chong went over, but she didn't dare to get close. She tugged at them twice to show that she was trying. Then, she saw Madame Hu wave a hand over and fall to the ground. Gu Dahu helped her back. Gu Dai wanted to help, but Father Ding was still there. Gu Gang could not stand it anymore and shouted, "Enough! Stop fighting!" As he spoke, he pointed at the onlookers and said, "All of you, go up and separate them." Only then did the people from Gu village take action. One of them pulled Madame Hu, and another pulled Madame Jia. Gu Gang snorted. Gu Dajiang's family is gone. What's the use of saying this now? Gu Chuanzong, do you want to give Bian Yuanji to the Ding family or not? If you do, you can just accept 1 tael of silver. If you don't, you can raise him yourself and give him betrothal gifts in the future. When Gu Chuanzong saw that things had come to this, he quickly nodded. Yes. Gu Gang looked at Father Ding again. What about you guys? The Ding family could afford 1 tael of silver, but Madame Hu was unwilling. However, when she thought of Bien Mulan who came to look for her in the middle of the night, she could only nod. Let's give it to them. They're like a group of beggars. After giving them the money, Ding Jincheng carried out Bien Yuanji, who had become numb and didn't speak anymore. Then he said to the Gu family, "Let's move his household register now." Chapter 322. Finally done. Why are you in such a hurry? Well, go tomorrow. Gu Chuanzong was unhappy. MDM Shen tugged at Gu Gang's sleeve and said softly, "Let's quickly finish this matter so that there won't be any complications." Gu Gang thought about it and agreed. Madame Hu was capricious, so he could not give her a chance to go back on her word. Hence, he glared at Gu Chuanzong and said, "Why tomorrow? It's still early. You can come back after you're done." As the village chief, he had to make a trip. Therefore, he walked up to Gu Chuanzong and said, "Give me the silver, B0XO. Gu Chuanzong was stunned. Gu Gang glared at him. Why? Don't you need to bribe to move the household register? Dr. Gu TTTTTTT could only give him the silver. After giving it to him, he suddenly realized that the Ding family should pay for it. However, Gu Gang could not be bothered with him. He got someone to get an ox cart and sat on it. Dr. Gu could only get into the car unwillingly. Ding Jincheng asked Father Ding to bring Madame Hu back to the village first. He could do this. Madame Hu wanted to follow him, worried that he would be at a disadvantage alone. However, she had just fought with Madame Jia. Her face was bruised, her clothes were torn, and her right foot was twisted. Hence, she could only remind Ding Jincheng to be more careful. Only then did Father Ding carry her back. The three of them staggered out of Gu village on the ox cart. Not long after they left the village, they saw a carriage parked by the roadside. There was a young man sitting on the shaft of the carriage. They did not know him. Only Ding Jincheng remained silent with his head lowered and Bian Yuanji in his arms. Gu Gang and Gu Chuanzong had a discussion curiously. Not long after the ox cart left, Shao Qingyuan walked over from afar. Aju lifted the curtain and jumped up. That's enough. As long as they settle the household registration. Let's go. Gu Yundong relaxed slightly and turned to look out of the window. He instantly felt refreshed. Therefore, she didn't notice Shao Qingyuan's hesitant expression. However, before Shao Qingyuan left, he asked Ago to stay behind and instructed him to do something. The carriage did not move very fast. After all, the speed of the ox cart was limited, so they could only move slowly. After entering the county city, Gu Yundong went to the inn to see Madame Yang. Madame Yang didn't see her the entire night and was a little anxious. If Shao Qingyuan hadn't come back to report, she wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. Now that she saw her, she quickly pulled her back. Dong Dong. I missed you so much. I miss you too. Have you eaten? Madame Yang nodded, and Gu Yundong accompanied her to talk while waiting for news from Ding Jincheng. Ding Jincheng had already entered the county office. The person in charge of household registration was the secretary, so he could be considered to know Gu Chuanzong. Now that Ding Jincheng had come personally and explained the situation, he did not make things difficult for him. However, Ding Jincheng didn't want to transfer Bian Yuanji to the Ding family. Instead, he wanted to give Bian Yuanji an independent house. Yuanji is the only son of the Bian family. He's going to carry on the family name. If he moves to the Ding family, what if things get messed up in the future? Gu Chuanzong pursed his lips. Things get messed up? Wasn't he just afraid that the child would take away his assets when he grew up? However, this was no longer his business. The three of them completed their household registration and walked back. However, Ding Jincheng said that he would buy clothes for Bian Yuanji instead of going with them. In the end, after Gu Gang and the other man left, Ding Jincheng led the child straight to the inn. They didn't even look at the clothing store when they passed by. Bian Yuanji thought that he had brought him here to sell him, especially when he saw Ding Jincheng bringing him to knock on a door of the room in the inn and saw a rich lady standing inside. This thought reached its peak. Chapter 323. Your cousin Yundong. Only Gu Yundong and Madame Yang were in the room. Shao, Qingyuan and the rest had returned to their rooms. Ding Jincheng let out a sigh of relief after bringing him over. Yundong, I've brought him over. This is his household register. He'll leave it here. After saying that, he placed the thing on the table and turned to leave. Seeing this, Bian Yuanji subconsciously took 2 steps forward. However, he soon stopped and watched the door close in front of him. It was as if all the light had been blocked outside. He stood there alone, not knowing what to do. B0XO. Calm, a gentle voice came from behind him. Are you Yuanji? Bian Yuanzi's petite body trembled slightly as he slowly turned around. He then took 2 steps back and pressed his back against the wall, watching her carefully. Naturally, he did not recognize Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong was dressed very differently from before. Even if she was wearing the same clothes as before, he would not recognize his cousin. After all, the last time they met was in the first month of last year when he went to visit his uncle. He did not stay for long. Most of the time, he played with Gu Yunshu, who was about the same age, and did not speak much to Gu Yundong. When Gu Yundong saw his frightened expression, she cursed the Gu family in his heart. She took 2 steps closer to him. Bian Yuanji wanted to hide into the wall. You don't remember me? Then do you remember your eldest uncle? Gu Yundong stopped in front of him and squatted down to ask him. Bian Yuanji was stunned. Eldest uncle? Of course, he remembered that eldest uncle doted on him a lot. Before his sister died, she had said that if he returned to his hometown and didn't see his parents, he should look for his eldest uncle or 4th uncle. However, when he arrived at the Gu family, he couldn't find his eldest uncle or 4th uncle. He only saw his 2nd and 3rd uncles, who had never treated him well. Gu Yundong tried her best to make the smile on her face look kind and gentle. Your eldest uncle's daughter, cousin Yundong. Do you remember? Bian Yuanzi's body was not as tense as before. He just widened his eyes in surprise. Gu Yundong asked again, do you still remember Ashu? I remember that you guys played together last year and you said that he was your best friend. Ashu's sister. Ashu? Eldest uncle? Bian Yuanji finally opened his small mouth and muttered softly. He looked at Gu Yundong, who was showing him kindness, and vaguely felt that he had seen her before. Cousin? Yes, I'm your cousin. Gu Yundong smiled. My current home is very far away. It's called Yongfu Village. I came back here to look for your eldest uncle, but I couldn't find him. I met Ding Jincheng and found out that you had been sent to the Gu family and had suffered a lot. That's why I asked him to bring you out. Yuanji, are you willing to go home with me? Go home. Bian Yuanzi's mind was in a mess. It turned out that she didn't want to buy him as a slave. Only then did Gu Yundong reach out and hold his tiny shoulders. She nodded and said, yes, I'll bring you back to your eldest uncle's house. Yunshu and Yunka are both there. Cousin and your eldest aunt are also there. Bian Yunji came back to his senses and nodded quickly. I'm willing to. I can work, cook, wash clothes, and feed pigs. He'll go to eldest uncle's house. Is that okay? Although he was unfamiliar with his cousin in front of him, he still remembered Ashu. Even if he was asked to go over and continue working, it did not matter to him. Chapter 324. It feels like a dream. Ashu was over there. He was his best friend. When he was sad, he could talk to Ashu. Ashu did not bully and laugh at him like the other cousins of the Gu family. Gu Yundong's heart ached when she heard what he said. She tightened her grip on Gu Yundong's shoulders and slowly released her grip when she felt the thin and weak bones under her palm. You don't have to work. When you come to eldest uncle's house, you just have to take care of yourself and help do what you can when we're busy. You're our family, not a servant. Family? It seemed like a long time since he had a family by his side. B0XO. Calm, blinking his eyes, Bian Yunji was confused and in disbelief. He felt like he was dreaming. Gu Yundong patted his head. Ashu must be very happy to see you. She stood up and held his hand as she walked towards Madame Yang, who had been standing at the side. Do you remember eldest aunt? Bian Yunji raised his head. He had an impression of Madame Yang. Firstly, it was because Madame Yang's situation was special and he easily remembered her. Secondly, it was because she was an adult and he had to greet the elders when he went to his uncle's house. He spoke more to her. When he entered just now, he was afraid and did not dare to look around. Only now did he notice her. Madame Yang also squatted down and hugged his small body. She patted his back gently and said with a smile, "Let's go home. They'll bring you home. Don't be afraid. Dong Dong is here. Don't be afraid." Wah? Bian Yunji suddenly burst into tears. Perhaps it was because Madame Yang was an elder, and her smile was reassuring. Her embrace was warm, and her voice also made his uneasy emotions relax. Immediately, all his discomfort and grievances surged, and he could not help but cry until he was hoarse. Madame Yang was shocked. She looked up at Gu Yundong helplessly. Gu Yundong blinked at her. Madame Yang patted Bian Yuanzi's back gently. Don't cry, don't cry. Be a good boy, don't cry. Bian Yunji had been suffering for too long. He had been treated like livestock by his relatives in the Gu family. Now that he was in the arms of his aunt, he finally understood what it meant to have a family member. Not all blood relations could be called family. He was crying so hard that he was out of breath. Seeing that he was about to faint, Gu Yundong went forward and pulled him out of Madame Yang's arms. She wiped his face with a handkerchief. Stop crying. It's all in the past. Are you hungry? Let's eat first. You can take a shower and sleep. We'll talk after you rest. Okay? Gu Yundong's temper was much better now, especially when facing children. She was especially patient. Yes, this was all thanks to Yunshu, Yunka, and Madame Yang. After all, these were 3 babies. Now, with the addition of Bian Yunji, Gu Yundong suddenly felt that she had the potential to be a kindergarten teacher. She suddenly shivered and got up to open the cover on the table. The food had been prepared long ago, and now it was warm enough to eat. Bian Yunji was indeed very hungry. He had only eaten a steamed bun last night. At the sight of the delicious food, he couldn't help but swallow hard. However, he was probably tortured by the Gu family for too long. He still asked carefully, "Can I really eat it?" Gu Yundong smiled at him. "You didn't eat much in the past. Now, you can only eat soft porridge and some light and refreshing dishes. You can slowly eat something better later." Okay, that was good too. This seemed to be plain porridge. Even old Master Gu could not eat such porridge. Chapter 325. Dog hasn't returned. Gu Yundong saw that although he nodded, he did not dare to do anything. So she scooped a bowl for him and placed it in front of him. Eat. She also scooped a bowl for Madame Yang. Madame Yang was very happy. She took a sip happily and said to Bian Yunji, "Eat quickly. After you're done, it'll teach you to solve the puzzle. The puzzle is very fun. After you finish it, you'll see Ashu and Kiki." Bian Yunji was curious. What was a puzzle? He couldn't help but take a sip. Then he felt his entire body warm up. It was delicious. more delicious than anything he had ever eaten. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm, he wanted to cry again. Bien Yuanji hurriedly wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and continued eating with a smile. Gu Yundong got up and went out, asking the waiter to prepare a bucket of hot water. She had bought 2 sets of clean clothes and some necessities for Bien Yuanji. Unexpectedly, when she opened the door, she saw Shao Qingyuan standing not far away, looking at the door. Gu Yundong walked over. "What's wrong? I heard crying just now." That was why he was worried. Gu Yundong's expression darkened. "It's all the Gu family's fault. It's fine. He's crying everything out." Dr. Gu was a selfish person. He didn't treat Bien Yuanji as his grandson at all. This child suffered worse than her family did back then. At least Gu Yundong and her siblings had Gu Dajiang to protect them. Although Gu Dajiang was usually so busy that he could not take care of them, the Gu family was really afraid of angering him. But Bien Yuanji, who didn't have his parents by his side and didn't have Gu Dajiang and 4th Uncle Gu protecting him, was almost tormented to death. They wouldn't do this even to strangers, right? "Although I didn't find father this time, it's a good thing to bring Yuanji back." Older Aunt Gu had a total of 3 children. The eldest, Bien Mulan, didn't make it through the escape. The second child was a son, but unfortunately he didn't grow up. When he was 4 years old, he died because of a fever. Older Aunt Gu had been traumatized for a long time. It was only 8 years ago that she was pregnant with Bien Yuanji. He was older Aunt Gus's only bloodline. As they were talking, the waiter came over with the cold water that was to be mixed with the hot water. Only then did Gu Yundong open the door and let them in. The 2 people in the room were almost full. Bien Yuanji's stomach had shrunk due to hunger, so he was already full after eating a little bit. Although he still wanted to eat, he touched his stomach and obediently put down the spoon. It was difficult to bathe after eating. Gu Yundong showed him the new clothes and asked him to choose one. Bien Yuanji widened his eyes in astonishment as he looked at the brand new clothes. It took him a long time to touch them. The fabric was very comfortable and seemed to be very warm. It was completely incomparable to the rough clothes he was wearing. He looked up. "Are you going to let me wear them?" "Of course. Don't you like the clothes?" Bien Yuanji hurriedly nodded his head. "Yes, I do. Take a bath and change into it later." Bien Yuanji couldn't help but burst out into laughter. After eating, he even had new clothes to wear. It was as if he was dreaming. He was so silly that Gu Yundong could not help but rub his head. Gu Yundong waited for the waiter to bring them hot water before she went out to call a Shu, who happened to pass by, to help Bien Yuanji bathe. Although Madame Yang was an elder, Yuanji was 7 years old after all. At this era, it was important for men and women to sit at different tables when they reached 7 years old. However, the conditions of rural families were limited, so even if they had grown up, they might still live in the same room. Madame Yang sat obediently outside the screen, completing the puzzle. From time to time, she would say a few words to Yuanji to prevent him from feeling nervous and uneasy in the same room as the unfamiliar Ashu. Gu Yundong went to look for Shao Qingyuan. She was curious why Ago was not back yet. Chapter 326. Itchy hands. Unexpectedly, just as she knocked on his door, Shao Qingyuan happened to be coming out. He seemed to be looking for her for something. "What is it? Are you done over there?" Shao Qingyuan asked as he let her in and closed the door. Gu Yundong nodded. "I felt that you had something to tell me just now. What's wrong? Also, what did you ask Ago to do? Why isn't he back yet?" Shao Qingyuan poured her a cup of tea and sat opposite her. "There's indeed something." Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm as he spoke, he pushed the cup in front of her. He realized that she would always drink water when she was angry. Gu Yundong looked at him in surprise. This person. She took the cup of water silently. "Go ahead." When the Ding family went to ask for the child today, they quarreled with the Gu family. At that time, Madame who said that she saw with her own eyes that your mother was hit on the head and pushed into the river by Guda's wife back then. That's how she became like this. Gu Yundong suddenly stood up. "What did you say?" "I don't know if Madame who said it in her anger or if it's true. I let Ago stay in Gu village and keep an eye on old Gus family to see if it's true." If he can't find out, we can only ask Madame Hu. Gu Yundong's face was ashen. It was not an accident that her mother fell into the water and became like this. Was Jia Meizi the one who smashed and pushed her? Her mother had already suffered enough in the Gu family. She was low-key and hard-working, but Jia Meizi actually wanted her life. She suddenly lowered her head and took 2 sips of water. Shao Qingyuan immediately poured more water for her. Don't worry, we'll talk about it when dog comes back. Gu Yundong slowly sat down, her gaze cold. Back then, when Madame Yang became like this, she had suffered so many insults and abuses. There were always some malicious fellows in the village who would deliberately trick her when they saw her, giving her something she shouldn't eat or making her do something she shouldn't do. In the beginning, Madame Yang was really miserable. At that time, Gu Yundong was still young and had to take care of her younger sister, who was born half a year ago and had no one to take care of her. However, those bastards from the Gu family deliberately made Madame Yang go out to wash clothes and shoot pig grass. It was only when Gu Dajiang suddenly returned and saw Madame Yang being forced to kneel on the ground and kowtow to someone with his own eyes that he got angry and smashed a stone at that person's head. He had injured the guy, and Gu Gang had found an excuse to beat him up. At that time, Gu Dajiang's gaze was fierce, and he looked like he wanted to perish together with him. This made Gu Gang a little afraid. He was worried that he would really anger Gu Dajiang, so he could only ask him to compensate the victim and let him go. After that day, Gu Dajiang didn't go to the county restaurant to continue being an accountant. He stayed at the Gu residence and didn't work. He had to take care of Madame Yang and the children. Dr. Gu had no choice but to give in and promise to let Madame Yang stay at home and work in the future so that she would not be bullied by the villagers. Only then did Gu Dajiang return to Xingxing restaurant. He had no choice but to go back. Madame Yang still needed money to treat her illness. He had to earn money. Gu Yundong had always thought that Madame Yang's fall into the water was an accident. After all, someone in the village had said that they had personally seen her fall into the water. Then, Madame Yang was rescued immediately and did not drown. Unexpectedly, the culprit was Jia Meizi. Very good. Her hands were itchy now. Calm down first. Ago should be back soon. Well, ask about the situation then. All right. I'll wait for Go to come back. She said word by word, almost gnashing her teeth. Chapter 327. How dare you kill her? At this moment, Ago was in the Gu family's small storeroom. Although it was called a small storeroom, it was actually filled with various hoes, farm tools, dustpans, and baskets. There was also a medium-sized wooden board in the room, which was Bian Yuanzi's bed. Ago sat on the wooden board and looked at the storeroom that was leaking in all directions. He had a better understanding of the inhumaneness of the Gu family. He was waiting for Dr. Gu to come back. It would take some time for Dr. Gu to go to the county to move the household register. Updated on B0XN0VL. As for the rest of the Gu family, they seemed to be staying in their rooms. No one came out and no one knew what they were talking about. It was not until Gu Chuanzong entered the courtyard with a dark expression that Madame Zhao came out to welcome him. Gu Chuanzong did not stop walking. He said to her, "Go and call everyone over." With that, he entered the room. Madame Zhao muttered, but she still went to call everybody. When Ago heard the commotion outside, he quickly stood up from the wooden board and quietly crawled to the window under the main house to squat. The main house was the best place in the entire Gu family. Behind the window was a small courtyard. It had been cultivated and planted as a vegetable field. When Ago came out, he also took out the wooden board from the storeroom. At this moment, he put the wooden board up and leaned against the wall, squatting down. The main room was filled with people one after another. The second and third branches, together with old Gu and Madame Zhao, filled up the not-so-big main room. Gu Chuanzong raised his head and glanced at them. His gaze finally landed on Madame Jia. Was that woman from the Ding family telling the truth? Madame Jia wanted to play dumb. "Father, what are you talking about? Are you serious? How can I believe that shrew's words? If I can't believe it, why did you go up and hit her?" Dr. Gu slammed the table. "Do you think everyone is blind? No one will believe you if you say that you're not guilty. Madame Jia immediately lowered her head and muttered softly. However, Gude said, "Father, how long has it been? Why are you still bringing it up? Besides, eldest brother's entire family is dead. No one is here to settle scores now." The third son, Gudahu, glanced at him. He lowered his head and said softly, "You can't say that. That woman was shouting in front of the entire village. Even if eldest brother's family is no longer around, we can't pretend that what second sister-in-law did never happened. What if the villagers point fingers at us in the future? Can our Gu family's daughters get married in the future?" Madame Zhao originally did not think that it was a big deal. In her opinion, even if Madame Yang died, it would be her life. However, when she heard her third son's words, she was instantly furious. She stood up and rushed towards Madame Jia, hitting her in the face. "You troublemaker! How can you be so capable? You even dare to throw a stone at someone. You're too vicious. It's not enough that you harmed yourself, but you also dare to implicate us." Gude glared at his third brother and went up to stop Madame Zhao. "Mother, stop. What's done is done. What do you want?" Madame Zhao was accidentally pushed by him and took 2 steps back. Madame Chang happened to support her. "Mother, be careful." She lowered her voice. "Don't anger second sister-in-law." She was unhappy when Shen was sold. When Madame Zhao heard this, she suddenly shivered. What did she mean? Could it be that Madame Jia dared to kill her? Chapter 328. Old Gu was beaten up. Madame Jia suddenly raised her head and glared fiercely at Madame Chang. Suddenly, she rushed over, grabbed Madame Chang's hair, and gave her 2 tight slaps. Madame Chang was caught off guard and fell. Gudahu reacted quickly and went forward to pull Madame Jia up and push her to the side. "Second sister-in-law, what are you doing? Why? You hit eldest sister-in-law and now you want to hit your third sister-in-law. It seems that none of your sisters-in-law will have a good ending, right?" "Puffed, what kind of sister-in-law is she?" Madame Jia sneered. She couldn't care less and pointed at Madame Chang. "Why did I hit eldest sister-in-law? You should ask your wife properly. If she hadn't said in front of me that eldest sister-in-law secretly seduced my day, would I have gone to settle scores with her?" Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm. Madame Chang trembled in Gudahu's arms. She sobbed and retorted, "Second sister-in-law, don't talk nonsense. When did I say that? Eldest sister-in-law had a man. Why would she seduce second uncle? You still dare to deny it, you still dare to deny it." Madame Jia wanted to rush up and hit her again. "You said that eldest uncle is not mother's biological son, and father doesn't treat him well, so eldest sister-in-law's life is the most difficult. So in order to live a good life, eldest sister-in-law wants to secretly hook up with our day. Did you say that? Is that right?" Madame Chang shook her head vigorously. "I didn't. I really didn't say anything. You slut, I knew that you two were bad people. When eldest uncle was around, you guys abused them. Now that they're not around, you're here to deal with us, right? When Shen was sold, it was you, slut, who sowed discord. All right, your daughter was saved. But you want my daughter to go out and suffer as a servant. I've long wanted to beat you to death." Gudahu said angrily, "Second sister-in-law, are you crazy? You're biting people everywhere. You two are not good people. Ever since you came back, you've been using Shen as an excuse and don't do anything. Father and mother feel guilty and let you lie at home like corpses every day. Now, you've done something wrong and let the entire village know that our family has a vicious woman. How dare you blame my wife here?" As soon as Gudahu got involved, Gude naturally had to protect Madame Jia. The two families were arguing fiercely. The children on both sides were also secretly competing. The entire main house was like a market, revealing all their shortcomings. In the past, with Gu Dajiang around, the second and third sons had the same parents. Naturally, they were on the same side and didn't get along with Gu Dajiang. Now that Gu Dajiang's family was gone, only the two families lived under the same roof. However, Gu Dai and his wife were lazy. When they were working, they would slack off if they could. The third branch had long lost their patience. Now that they had finally found Gu Da's fault, they naturally had to make use of it. If they could poke someone's wound, they would poke it. It was best to take the opportunity to split up the family and let the two lazy people from the second branch fend for themselves. Madame Zhao was stunned. So her two daughters-in-law had actually done so much behind her back? She looked at old Gu, who also had a sullen face. His two sons, whom he doted on the most, had actually hated each other to this extent. His head hurt from the noise. He closed his eyes for a long time before slamming the table. "Shut up, all of you." No one listened to him. The two sides were in a heated argument and even started fighting. It was not known who was careless, but one of their fists missed and knocked old Gu, who was walking over angrily, to the ground. Madame Zhao screamed, "Old man!" The quarreling in the main room finally stopped. Chapter 329. Baka Go, who was under the window, heard what happened and cursed in his heart. He deserved it. Dr. Gu was sent to the bed. Madame Jia immediately said, "I'll go find a doctor." After saying that, she ran out. Her positive attitude made Go feel that something was wrong. After hesitating for a moment, Go followed her silently. Madame Jia was not on the way to call a doctor. She secretly ran to the foot of a mountain and looked around. When she did not see anyone, she quickly squatted under a tree and dug. Updated on B0XN0VL. Not long after, a stone was dug out. Go quickly guessed that this stone should be the one that hit Madame Yang's head. Madame Jia hugged the stone and looked around. Go hurriedly hid his body. She quickly filled in the hole she had dug and stepped on it forcefully. Then, she took the stone and left. She originally wanted to throw it into the river, but now that the riverside was filled with women washing clothes, she could only find a random place to throw it away. Anyway, Madame who only said that she saw the place where the stone was buried. Now that there were no more stones in that place, what else could she say? Only then did Madame Jia hurriedly run to find a doctor. Go waited for her to leave before he went over to pick up the stone. The stone was not big, and it had been a few years. There were no traces left on it. However, Go still tore off a piece of his sleeve and carefully wrapped the stone. Seeing that it was getting late, he hurriedly returned to Jiangyu County. Yundong was sitting in the room and listening to Madame Yang humming a tune. Bian Yuanji had just fallen asleep. He didn't seem to be sleeping well. His brows were tightly knitted. It wasn't until Madame Yang hummed older Aunt Gus' tune that he slowly fell asleep. Yundong tilted her head and looked at Madame Yang's confused eyes. If she returned to normal in the future and recalled the humiliations she had suffered in the past, would she be very sad and painful? However, she could not let her remain foolish forever. This was unfair to Madame Yang. When she had the chance, she would ask Dr. Song if Madame Yang could forget this unhappy memory after she was cured. Just as she was engrossed in her thoughts, there was a soft knock on the door. Yundong stood up and said to Madame Yang, "Mother, Yuanji is asleep. You should rest too." "I'm not tired." Madame Yang actually enjoyed this state. Deep down, she still wanted to take care of others. Previously, on the way to escape, she had been feeding and dressing the two children with Gu Yunka on her back. This seemed to have become her bodis memory. It was just that she had been out with Gu Yundong during this period of time and did not have a Shu and Kiki by her side to take care of. Dong Dong did everything by herself, so Madame Yang was a little perturbed. Sometimes, there was a panic in the depths of her heart that she was not needed. Now that Bian Yuanji was here, she was much calmer. Actually, Gu Yundong had long noticed her state, but she could not think of a solution for the time being. After all, she really did not need her mother to dress and wash her face. Pursing her lips, she opened the door and went out. Gu Yundong guessed that Go had returned. Sure enough, when she went to Shao Qingyuan's room, she saw Go sitting on a stool with a serious expression. In front of him was a stone covered in mud. Seeing Gu Yundong enter, Go immediately stood up. "Mississippi." Gu Yundong's gaze fell on the stone and he quickly guessed its origin. Go looked at her worriedly. He glanced at Shao Qingyuan, who was also silent. No one knew what he was thinking. Gu Yundong had already walked to the stool and sat down. "Speak." Chapter 330. Let them have a taste of blood. Ago nodded and immediately repeated what he had heard under the window of old Gus' house. His memory was extremely good, and he could almost recall everything that everyone had said. Gu Yundong listened quietly, her gaze fixed on the rock. After Ago finished speaking, she even poured him a glass of water. Ago felt that the latter's mood was a little strange now. He had clearly said it with righteous indignation, but the lady was so calm that there were no ripples. Updated on B0XN0VL. Calm. Only Shao Qingyuan knew that this was the calm before the storm. Sure enough, after she took the teacup from Shao Qingyuan and drank the water, the teacup was crushed by her. Ago was speechless. Was Miss Gu that strong? He tried to exert his strength, and even the veins on his face popped out, but the teacup was still intact. Ago silently put the teacup back and asked Gu Yundong, "Miss, what should we do next?" "We must teach old Gus family a lesson." More than a lesson. She wanted them to have a taste of blood. "Tell us, we'll do it," Shao Qingyuan said. At the side, Ago nodded desperately. Gu Yundong thought of what old Gus family had done. Old Gu cared about his face and was selfish and hypocritical. Madame Zhao was unreasonable, ruthless, and unreasonable. The second branch was lazy, vicious, and enjoyed life. The third branch was a couple who specialized in sowing discord in the dark. Coincidentally, she could deal with them all at once. Gu Yundong began to roll up her sleeves, eager to make a move. "How about this?" Gu Yundong asked the others to come in and explained many things in detail. Mao and the others nodded as they listened. In the end, their eyes lit up. After Gu Yundong finished planning everything, she let Mao and the rest go to bed while she prepared to return to her room. Behind her, Shao Qingyuan suddenly asked, "What about me? Aren't you busy with Gu Gang's family? Do you need me to make a plan for you?" Actually, there was no need. Shao Qingyuan knew that she wanted to deal with old Gus family. As the patriarch, Gu Gang might cause trouble, so he just had to stir up trouble in Gu Gang's family. But, yes, he said seriously and sincerely. Gu Yundong's mouth could not help but twitch. She sat back down. Shao Qingyuan poured her a glass of water and sat up straight, looking like he was all ears. But the next moment, he saw Gu Yundong frowning as if she was thinking hard. His heart ached instantly. He immediately stood up. "Go back and rest. I can settle it." Didn't you just say? I suddenly had an idea. Gu Yundong was speechless. "I don't believe you. You had a flash of inspiration?" "Yes, I just thought of it." Shao Qingyuan nodded affirmatively. His expression was exceptionally serious, and he spoke as if it was true. Gu Yundong could not help but want to laugh. Why was this man so cute? She was originally filled with frustration today, but when she saw him like this, she suddenly felt relieved. After dealing with old Gus family, she felt that she should have a good chat with Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong returned to her room and she reserved another room beside. In any case, there was really no business in this inn. Gu Yundong and her gang's arrival had increased its popularity. The next morning, Ago and Aju set off. However, before they left, they took the stone wrapped in cloth with them. Not long after, Ashu and Mao also left the inn. At this moment, Gu Yundong carried the food into the room and asked Madame Yang and Bian Yuanji to eat. Bian Yuanji walked to the table and his eyes widened when he saw Shao Qingyuan enter. Chapter 331:1 Can do anything. Wasn't this the person who gave him the white steamed bun? Bian Yuanji blinked. So, did his cousin send this guy over? What about the one from the day before? Was it also his cousin's doing? His eyes suddenly curved into crescents, and he smiled happily. Shao Qingyuan noticed his gaze and couldn't help but look at him. Updated on B0XN0VL. Calm. Bian Yuanji hurriedly lowered his head and ate obediently. However, from the corner of his eye, he saw Shao Qingyuan scooping porridge for Gu Yundong. He could not help but think to himself that this was his cousin-in-law. She looked better than his ex-brother-in-law. She would definitely be happy in the future. Definitely. After everyone at the table finished eating in silence, Shao Qingyuan said, "Someone will come over later." Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Shao Qingyuan looked at the time and walked to the windowsill. He lowered his eyes and looked at the people coming and going below. After a while, a familiar-looking woman walked over and raised her head to look over. When she saw Shao Qingyuan, she quickly lowered her head. This person was Gu Gang's concubine, Madame Shen. Madame Shen was holding a basket in her hand and there was a woman beside her. She did not notice Madame Shen's abnormality and was bargaining with the vegetable seller by the roadside. Seeing that the discussion was intense, Madame Shen suddenly said in a low voice, "I'm a little unwell. I'll go to the inn opposite to borrow the outhouse. If you've bought the vegetables, wait for me under the willow by the river." The woman frowned. She wanted to say that she was lazy and had a lot of feces and urine, but she still forced a smile. "All right, go ahead. But you have to give me the money for the groceries." Madame Shen gave her the money and the basket. She hurriedly turned around and entered the inn. The woman pursed her lips, but she was a little happier when she saw the money in her hand. She worked even harder to argue with the vegetable seller. If she could get the price lower by 1 copper coin, she would be able to keep 1 more copper coin. Madame Shen entered the inn and looked at the second floor. When she saw Shao Qingyuan, she hurriedly came up. After entering, she saw Gu Yundong, Madame Yang, and Bian Yuanji. Bian Yuanji also saw her. Of course, he recognized this person. In the past, when Madame Shen pitied him, she would occasionally give him some food. Bian Yuanji had a good impression of her and would not call her a vixen behind her back like the other children in the village did. Madame Shen was slightly surprised to see Bian Yuanji, who had changed completely. She smiled and nodded at him before looking at Gu Yundong. "You must be Miss Gu." "Miss Shen," Gu Yundong said with a smile. When Madame Shen heard her address, she was still in a daze. Ever since she became Gu Gang's concubine, she had heard many vicious and unpleasant titles. The best was Madame Shen. It had been a long time since anyone called her Miss Shen. Madame Shen was a little moved. She secretly took a deep breath and said, "I don't have much time. They'll make it short. Let's go to the room next door." Gu Yundong asked Madame Yang to teach Bian Yuanji to solve the puzzle, and the 3 of them went to Shao Qingyuan's room. Originally, Shao Qingyuan could have gone to the Gu village to look for Madame Shen. However, Gu Gang's wife kept a close eye on her and was especially keen to find trouble with her. Just 2 days ago, when Shao Qingyuan went to look for her, he was almost seen by that woman. Madame Shen took the opportunity to go out. She even brought Gu Gang's daughter-in-law Madame Yu with her. Since ancient times, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had always been difficult to get along. Madame Yu and her mother-in-law had always been at odds. Now that she had Madame Shen as her second mother-in-law, wouldn't she be close to her so that they could deal with the mother-in-law together? After the 3 of them sat down, Madame Shen asked, "What do you want me to do? What can you do?" Madame Shen sneered. "As long as Gu Gang receives retribution, I can do anything." Chapter 332. Shen's hatred. Madame Shen was indeed saved by Gu Gang's grandson, Gu Wanbao. She was originally a girl from a small town, the only daughter of her parents. Her family background was not bad. When she grew up, her parents wanted to find a son-in-law for her, but the conditions of a live-in son-in-law were not particularly good. After some selection, she was already 17 or 18 years old. Then, the Shen family left Yongning Prefecture because of the famine. Unfortunately, the Shen family's parents were gone. Only Madame Shen was barely alive. She had promised her parents that she would take care of herself and save her life. Therefore, when Gu Wanbao saved her, she was sincerely grateful. Updated on B0xN0VL. Even though the rest of the Gu family looked at her sloppy appearance with disdain. Even though she knew that the Gu family was not a good family. Even though after she washed her face, the 3 males of the Gu family looked at her strangely. Madame Shen was already prepared to be a slave. They had saved her life, so it was not too much to be a slave. However, this did not include the fact that Gu Gang had forcibly defiled her when she was completely unwilling. The pain from that day was still unforgettable and heart-wrenching. There were no good people in old Gu's family. None of them were innocent. This included Gu Wanbao and Madame Yu, who had sent her to Gu Gang's bed. She was the woman who had been bargaining with the vegetable seller. Madame Yu was Gu Wanba's mother, so she didn't like Madame Shen. Not only did Madame Shen have no one to rely on, but even her man had to peek at this woman from time to time. Coupled with the fact that Gu Wanbao was liking her more and more, Madame Yu was a little anxious. Perhaps because she had been the village chief's daughter-in-law for a long time and felt that her family was superior to others. Gu Wanbao had to marry a girl from the county. Therefore, Madame Yu found an opportunity and secretly sent Madame Shen to her father-in-law's bed. This way, Gu Wanbao would not marry this woman. Her own man would not dare to look at this woman, and she would be able to disgust her annoying mother-in-law. Everyone would be happy. Only Madame Shen was almost sent to hell. Gu Wanbao, on the other hand, was dissatisfied and wanted to make a fuss. After being threatened and tempted by Gu Gang, he stopped. However, Madame Shen knew that the way Gu Wanbao looked at her was even more unscrupulous and dirty than before, as if she was just an unpresentable thing. Sometimes, she even thought of buying a bag of arsenic and poisoning everyone in Old Gus' family to death. However, she had promised her parents that she would live well. Hence, she was waiting for an opportunity. Now, this opportunity had arrived. Madame Shen looked at Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong with a hint of madness in her eyes. I just want to keep my life. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Then let Gu Gang and Gu Wanbao fight, Shao Qingyuan said. Madame Shen was stunned. Let Gu Gang and Gu Wanbao go against each other? Gu Wanbao was actually a coward. When facing Gu Gang, he could only retreat. If they were to fight, he would have to be forced into a corner. Shao Qingyuan said, although Gu Wanbao is timid, he grew up under Gu Gang's dominance. There are some things that he doesn't dare to say. Didn't Gu Gang find a marriage for him? Let Gu Gang ruin this marriage. Gu Wanbao. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Madame Shen. There's no need to say anything else. I have an idea. Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong looked at each other. Seeing the determination in Madame Shen's eyes, they did not say anything else. If you need help, you can look for Ashu and the others. You've seen them before. All right, I'll go back first. Madame Shen stood up and turned to leave the inn. Gu Yundong looked at her back and frowned slightly. Why do I feel that her thoughts are a little dangerous? Shao Qingyuan had this feeling in his heart too. Chapter 333. Something happened to the old Gu family. Madame Shen returned to Madame Yes side and smiled again. Madam, you complained impatiently. What took you so long? I've been standing here for a while. I had no choice. My stomach suddenly felt uncomfortable. I really don't know if I ate something wrong. Madame Shen sighed and frowned slightly. She looked a little haggard. Madame Yu immediately exclaimed, the food this morning was made by mother-in-law. Could it be that she wanted to say something but hesitated, as if she was concerned. Seeing Madame Shen's expression suddenly darken, she immediately felt happy. She loved watching these two mother-in-laws fight. Because Madame Shen was not feeling well, the two of them sped up. After hurriedly buying things, they took the ox cart back. In the end, just as they got off the ox cart at the village, they suddenly saw the doctor in town running in hurriedly. The person leading the way was actually Gu Dai. Beside them, the women in the village were discussing mysteriously. Madame Yu was a person who liked to join in the fun. She quickly ran over and asked around. The woman immediately said, something happened to Gu Dai's wife. This morning, when she carried her clothes to the river to wash them, she was suddenly knocked on the head and fell into the river. Ah! Madame Yu was surprised. Is that person still alive? She's alive. Someone downstream saw her fall into the river and quickly saved her. Speaking of which, it's strange. That person only saw Jia Meizi fall into the river, but he didn't see anyone push her down. Isn't this situation exactly the same as when Gu Dajiang's wife fell into the river? Do you think Gu Dajiang's wife came back to take revenge? The person who spoke at the end lowered his voice, carrying a strange aura. When others heard this, they could not help but shiver. Don't spout nonsense. If Gu Dajiang's wife wants revenge, why didn't she come over earlier? She didn't know who hit her head. If it weren't for the Ding family's wife yesterday, who would know? That's true. Why don't we go to old Gus' house to take a look and ask if that's true? The people gathered here were all gossipy. They were very curious. As soon as someone said this, although they were also a little afraid that Madame Yang's ghost would not disperse. There were many people and it was broad daylight, so there was nothing to be afraid of. MDMU was also curious and wanted to take a look, so she went over and said to MDM Shen, "If you're not feeling well, go back quickly. Bring everything home first. They'll take a look at old Gus' house too. They'll tell you when I come back." After saying that, she stuffed the basket in her hand into Madame Shen's hand. "All right, I'll go back first." Before MDM Shen could finish speaking, MDMU impatiently followed the others towards old Gus' house. MDM Shen pursed her lips and returned to the Gu residence. At this moment, the Gu residence was exceptionally deserted. The courtyard door was not locked, but there seemed to be no one around. MDM Shen put down her things and looked around. She realized that only Gu Wanbao was sleeping on the bed. The others might have gone to old Gus' house? MDM Shen's eyes flickered slightly. She walked into the courtyard and deliberately made a loud sound. Bang! It immediately spread into the room. Gu Wanbao jolted and sat up on the bed. Frowning, he rubbed his eyes and looked out sleepily. Just as he was about to curse, he suddenly heard a low cry. Chapter 334. You're my darling. Gu Wanbao was stunned. He immediately got off the bed and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw MDM Shen sitting in the central room with her head lowered, wiping her tears. That low sobbing voice was actually indescribably melodious and pleasing to the ear. Gu Wanbao could not help but feel an itch in his heart. He looked around and saw that there was no one around, so he quietly approached her. "Why are you crying?" MDM Shen seemed to be shocked. She suddenly looked up with tears in the corners of her eyes. Why are you home?" She quickly wiped her tears and turned her back to him. "I just came back from work and I'm tired. I'm resting in my room." In fact, he had been fooling around outside for the entire night and had only returned in the morning. After all, he was going to get married soon. At that time, it would be inconvenient for him to do anything with a wife at home. Of course, he had to go out and have a good time before he got married. He asked again, "Why are you crying?" MDM Shen shook her head. "It has nothing to do with you." "How so? We're family now. Tell me quickly who bullied you." MDM Shen sneered. "What family? Who's your family? You're getting married soon. When the time comes, your family will be another woman. What am I?" As she spoke, she started crying again. She was even sadder than before. Gu Wanbao was stunned for a moment. He carefully thought about what she meant and his eyes lit up. He smiled casually. "You can't bear to leave me?" MDM Shen did not speak and only lowered her head to hide her tears. Wasn't her silence a tacit agreement? Gu Wanbao's vanity was greatly satisfied. He leaned forward. "Tell me, did you miss me?" MDM Shen seemed to be annoyed by his interrogation. She suddenly turned around and pushed him. "So what if I did? You're going to marry someone else. I'm already your grandmother." Gu Wanbao laughed. "What grandmother? Is there a grandma as young as you? You're my darling. I really cherish you." "Humph, I can't tell." She looked as if she didn't believe him, but the corners of her mouth curled up uncontrollably. Gu Wanbao looked at her seriously. "Don't be sad. My heart is filled with you. You ignored me a while ago. Were you angry with me? Now that you see that I'm getting married, you're nervous?" "Nervous about what? Why should I care?" "You don't mean what you say." "I'm just—" Before MDM Shen could finish speaking, footsteps came from outside. "I'll hide first." Gu Wanbao quickly turned around and returned to his room. Madame Shen looked at his back and snorted. The next moment, Gu Gang's wife, Madame Wang, strode in. When she saw Madame Shen, she scolded her. "How long have you been here? Don't you have to work? If everyone is waiting for you to cook, won't we starve to death?" Gu Wanbao walked out with sleepy eyes. "Grandma, why are you shouting? You woke me up." Madame Wang's expression changed. She quickly went forward and said, "Wanbao, you're here. I'm sorry I didn't notice. I won't be noisy anymore. Why don't you sleep for a while more?" "I'm already awake. Why should I sleep?" He looked around. Where are my parents and the others? They're all at Gu Chuanzong's house. His family has the most trouble. Madame Wang was originally watching the commotion, but when she saw her daughter-in-law, Madame Yu, go over, she found out that they had returned from the county city and hurriedly ran back to find trouble with Madame Shen. Gu Wanba's interest was piqued. What happened to that family? It said that they encountered a ghost. It's broad daylight. Where did the ghost come from? Then I'll go take a look too. Gu Wanbao ran out. When he arrived at old Gus' house, he saw that it was indeed surrounded by people. When he finally squeezed in, he heard his grandfather talking. Chapter 335. Scared to death. Why doesn't your family ever stop? Previously, Bian Yuanji attracted a county magistrate. 2 days ago, the Ding family's wife came to cause trouble. Today, you said that your wife encountered a ghost. Can't you live a good life? Gu Gang was very impatient. He lectured Gu Chuanzong like a grandson. Gu Wanbao listened with great interest outside. However, he was curious about what Gu Da's wife looked like after she encountered a ghost. Hence, he quietly blended into the crowd and walked towards Gu Da's room. There were a lot of people surrounding Gu Da's room and they couldn't be chased away. Everyone wanted to hear what the doctor had to say. The old doctor only took her pulse slightly and said, "She's fine. She was just shocked. She just needs to rest well." "But doctor, there's a big bump on the back of my wife's head. How can she be fine?" Update on Biomicron X0VL. Xiomicron M. The old doctor glanced at Gude. "You said it's a big bump yourself. It will disappear after a while. What's the hurry?" Gude wanted to say something, but the old doctor had already left impatiently. As soon as he left, the others immediately asked, "Da's wife, what happened? Did you see anyone smash your head? Did you really encounter a ghost?" Jia Maisie, who had already woken up, could not help but shiver. She did not know who hit her on the head, but she knew that she was not by the river when she fainted. When she was at the foot of the mountain, she felt a pain in her head and fainted. However, the women who had saved her just now said that when they saw her, she was standing by the river upstream. They called her a few times, but she did not respond. Instead, she fell straight into the river, and there was no one beside her. She looked as if she had been possessed by a ghost. Without needing anyone to remind her, Jia Maisie almost immediately thought of Madame Yang. Wasn't it exactly the same when she pushed Madame Yang into the river? But the problem was that when she pushed Madame Yang, she happened to be at the corner of the river. At that time, a big rock blocked her figure. Therefore, no one could see if Madame Yang had fallen accidentally or been pushed down. However, no one had expected someone to be so vicious as to kill someone. Therefore, when Gu Dajiang asked, the women by the river said that she had slipped and fallen into the river and hit her head. As it happened, Madame Yang had become stupid, so she naturally could not defend herself. However, Madame Jia was different. There were no obstacles around the place where she fell into the water. Everyone could clearly see that she was standing alone by the river with her body leaning forward. At that time, a woman called out to her. Then she fell. Jia Maisie was still afraid when she thought about it. She even felt that Madame Yang might be beside her. The people in the room were still discussing loudly. Gude had a headache from the noise and suddenly roared, "All of you, get out. Didn't you hear the doctor say that my wife needs a good rest? Get lost." As he spoke, he asked his eldest son, the 12-year-old Gu Feier, to chase them away. Gu Feier picked up the broom beside him and waved it at the crowd. A group of gossipy women. "Do you have nothing better to do? Get out, get out." As he did this, everyone left one after another. However, they were cursing and swearing. Some even said that Jia Maisie deserved it. This was her retribution. The third branch of the Gu family, Gu Dahu and his wife, also came to visit. The two of them looked at each other and laughed. Now, the two branches had completely fallen out with each other and did not even greet each other. Seeing Jia Maisie encounter such a thing, the two of them were indescribably happy. Unexpectedly, just as they were about to return to their room, they suddenly heard two voices discussing from the corner of the wall. Chapter 336. Hiding Merit and Fame Gu Dahu suddenly stopped in his tracks and pulled Madame Chong back. He pressed his lips together and shushed her. Soon, the discussion gradually became clearer. Gu Da's wife must have suffered retribution. Madame Yang must have come back to take revenge on her. Who asked her to be so vicious and evil? Do you think Gu Dai will also suffer retribution? Gu Dai didn't break his sister-in-law's head and push her into the river, right? Otherwise, why was Jia Meizi the only one who got into trouble today? Heh, you don't know about this, right? Another person said mysteriously. Let me tell you. Gu Dai was drunk some time ago and personally said that on the way to Qingyuan Prefecture, he knocked his niece's head and even snatched a tael of silver. I heard that his niece was already half dead at that time. Do you think she died because he knocked her? Update on Omicron X0VL. Omicron oh, there's such a thing? That's why I wondered if his niece would seek revenge on Gu Dai. The two of them chatted for a while before suddenly getting up and leaving. Gu Dahu stood where he was, deep in thought. On the other hand, Madame Chong hurriedly walked around to look at the two people who were talking. Unfortunately, she could only see the backs of the two men. They were wearing the clothes of ordinary villagers. She did not know who they were. When she returned, she saw Gu Dahu's eyes shining. He pulled her back to the room and whispered, I have an idea. Do you want to hear it? What is it? Second sister-in-law has harmed eldest sister-in-law. Isn't there a retribution now? Then second brother has harmed Yundong. Shouldn't he pay the price too? Madame Chong was stunned. Gu Dahu cackled. Second brother wanted Yundong's life. Of course, he could not take second brother's life, but second brother's silver. The couple lowered their heads and began to discuss in detail. On the other side, Ago and Aju, who had been hiding, covered their mouths and laughed softly. It's about time. Let's go back today. Sure thing. The two of them left Gu village silently. Because of the Gu village was the combination of two villages, the other village had few people and was poor. After they returned from the wilderness, some houses could not be lived in, so some people moved to the empty houses in Gu village. Therefore, there were always strangers coming in and out of this place, so the two of them were not so conspicuous. The two of them returned to Jiangyu County and entered the inn. In the end, they only saw Amao waiting for them alone. Amao and Ashu woke up early to look at the houses in the county city. After all, they could not leave for the time being, and it was inconvenient to stay in the inn all the time. After looking around, they all moved over, leaving only Amao here to bring them to the place. The new courtyard was a little remote. They wouldn't be staying there for long anyway. Ago was a little excited when he went in. After sitting down, he could not wait to tell them what had happened in Gu village. That Jia Meizi really thought that she was possessed by a ghost. She was so frightened that her face turned pale. I'm dying of laughter. Actually, Ago had indeed knocked her out and moved her to the river with Aju. They originally wanted to move her to the place where Madame Yang had fallen into the water. There were large rocks there that could block people, and the same place looked more realistic. However, there was someone there. After Ago and Aju discussed, they found another place. At that time, Jia Meizi was tied to a rope, and the other end of the rope was pulled by Aju, who hid in a tree. Chapter 337. It must be Gu Yundong. Ago went into the water and stuck his head out. He grabbed Madame Jia's feet and held them in place. From afar, it was like Madame Jia was standing facing the river, her body leaning forward as if she was about to fall. However, they could not see Ago in the water. When they called out to Madame Jia, Ago untied the rope on her body and Madame Jia fell into the river. In order not to kill anyone, Ago even put her head aside. Then, he swam to the other side and immediately changed his clothes when he got ashore. Fortunately, the weather was gradually getting warmer. Although it was still a little cold, Ago felt fearless. Even so, Gu Yundong still made him drink a large bowl of ginger tea to get rid of the cold. Update on Omicron X0VL. Omicron Gu Dahu and his wife should have fallen for it too. Speaking of this, everyone could not help but feel excited. Amao said, "We should go to Gu village tomorrow." The next day, Ashu went to Gu village with the excuse of settling down. They pretended to be dissatisfied with other places and had no choice but to run back to Gu village. On the other hand, Gu Gang became even more smug and arrogant. Ashu said that he wanted to walk around the village first. When Gu Gang saw that there was a chance, he immediately brought him along. They walked to the entrance of old Gus' house. Then, they heard a commotion coming from inside. "Father, there was a thief in our house. I don't have any money left in my room." The smile on Gu Gang's face suddenly fell, and he gritted his teeth in anger. Ashu looked inside curiously. Gu Da's loud shout had called the whole family over. When Madame Zhao heard that her house had been robbed, she immediately turned around and returned to her room. She looked at her money bag and heaved a sigh of relief. However, her expression immediately turned ugly. She came out and asked him, "You saved money? How much did you save? Was it your wife who urged you?" "Mother, why are you still talking about this at a time like this? Our house has been robbed." "Madame Zhao, robbed? Then why didn't I lose anything in my room?" "I didn't lose anything in my room either. Even the copper coin that Mother gave our bower yesterday is on the table." "It's still there," Madame Chong added. Gu Dai was stunned. What did she mean? Was he the only one who lost money in his room? Gu Dahu suddenly seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed, "Second brother, don't tell me it was also taken by a ghost? It even specially took your silver." "What did you say?" Gu Dai glared at him fiercely. Gu Dahu quickly took a step back. Why is second brother so angry? Could it be that second brother has forgotten that he snatched Yundong's money on the way to escape? "Look, she came back to take revenge on you. Otherwise, while second sister-in-law is still recuperating in her room, who would dare to go in and steal?" When everyone heard this, their expressions instantly changed. It would have been fine if Jiamezi had encountered such a strange thing alone. But now, even Gu Dai had encountered it? Well, Gu Dai felt as if his throat was choked and he could not say a word. Ashu, who was outside the door, clicked his tongue. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Gu Gang's face. They're all talking nonsense. There's something wrong with the brains of everyone in old Gus' family. Ashu didn't say anything and turned around to go back. When they returned to Gu Gang's house, Gu Gang started to talk about the price again. But Ashu did not say a word. The central room was silent for a moment. On the other hand, Mao sauntered out again. When no one was around, he walked to the kitchen. Seeing that MDM Shen was alone, he quickly went in and said, "Miss Shen, my lady asked me to tell you something." Chapter 338. Something happened to old Gu again. MDM Shen looked out. Madame Wang had gone to the toilet and was not back yet. She took a step forward and asked, "What is it?" Mao said, "My lady said that there are many ways to take revenge. If this path doesn't work, well, find another one. However, it's not worth it to sacrifice yourself for revenge." When Madame Shen heard this, she was stunned. Did that Miss Gu guess something? She pursed her lips and looked up to say something, but Mao had already left. Update on Biomicron X0VL. Xiomicron MDM Shen secretly pinched her fingers. Another way? Of course she knew there were other ways, but she didn't want to wait any longer. She would not throw herself in. "Why are you standing at the door? Did you do something wrong? Did you secretly eat something? Huh?" Madame Wang's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Madame Shen was pushed by her and instantly lowered her eyes to hide the disgust in the corners of her eyes. She did not say a word. However, Madame Wang refused to give up. "Why are you acting like this again? Alright, there's a piece of meat missing. You must have eaten it secretly. I knew that you're not a good person. I was only gone for a while. Your hands and feet are dirty, right? I was wondering why you spent so much money when you went to the county city to buy things yesterday. Were you the one who kept some of the money?" Her cursing continued. Gu Gang finally couldn't help but walk over and slap her. "Can you stop? The guests have been scared away. Do you think everyone is as petty and stingy as you?" Madame Wang screamed. "You hit me again?" She pounced on him and scratched him with her nails. MDM Shen silently retreated to a corner and watched them fight to the death. On the other side, Ashu had also returned. However, He told Gu Gang that he had to consider it carefully and would come back another day. The next day, Ago and Aju came over. Then something happened to old Gus' family again. It was said that when Madame Jia came out of the outhouse in the morning, she saw the youngest son of the third branch take out a stone from Gu Dahu and his wife's room and plan to throw it away. Then, she recognized that it was the stone that she had dug out from the ground and thrown away. Jia Meizi exploded on the spot. She snatched the stone and beat the child until he almost vomited blood. Hence, the two branches started fighting again. Madame Jia insisted that it was Gu Dahu and his wife who had smashed her head, not Madame Yang's ghost at all. Of course, Gu Dahu and his wife did not admit it. They felt that Madame Jia was deliberately slandering them because the second branch had lost money and wanted to extort a sum from them. Old Gu and Madame Zhao were in a terrible fix. Not to mention stopping the fight, they were even injured. The villagers were all watching the commotion. Only then did they realize that Madame Chong, who looked soft and weak, actually had extraordinary combat strength. She pressed Madame Jia down and beat her up until she cried like a ghost. On the third day, Mao and Shu came again, so something happened to old Gus' family again. The two branches of old Gus' family wanted to split up, but old Gu refused. Madame Zhao said that they wanted to follow third brother. This was because she knew that her second son and wife were lazy and greedy. Moreover, she had sold Gu Xiener previously. Madame Jia must have a grudge against them. Gu Dai did not want to take care of this couple either, so he agreed readily. However, the condition was that they had to share more of the family assets as compensation for Gu Xiener. Madame Zhao said that she did not have money. When no one was paying attention, Gu Feier secretly ran to the third branch's room to search for silver. He actually found 8 taels of silver. The Gu family was stunned, and Madame Zhao was even more dumbfounded. She had only saved 15 taels of silver for so many years. Chapter 339. The end of the old Gu family. Gu Dai leaned over to take a look and realized that one of the pieces of silver looked very familiar. When he took a closer look, he immediately recognized it. Wasn't this his? He remembered that when he went to exchange for copper coins, the silver fragments were in this shape. At that time, he even joked that the silver fragment was twisted too uniquely, and the two gaps were a little symmetrical. Gu Dai rushed up on the spot and hit Gu Dahu. He scolded him for being a thief and wanted to send him to the officials. He scolded his brother's wife for being a murderer and trying to murder Madame Jia. The two branches started fighting again. This time, even the children were involved. Old Gu shouted at the top of his lungs. No one listened to him at all. Madame Zhao cried even louder. Many things in her house had been smashed. On the fourth day, Ago and Aju came again. Then something happened to old Gus' family again. The 5th day, the 6th day, the 7th day. On the 8th day, old Gus' family's two branches had already reached a point where they could not get along. The villagers seemed to be watching the show every day. Gu Gang wanted to interfere, but he realized that Gu Wanbao had been making things difficult for him recently. The two of them had quarreled several times, and he had even said that he did not want to get married. The rumors had even reached the ears of his future in-laws. Gu Gang was already in a terrible fix over his own family's matters, so how could he have the time to pay attention to old Gus' family's situation? By the time he came back to his senses, something had already happened to old Gus' family. It was said that Jia Meizi had suffered too much during this period of time. It was mainly because they were at a disadvantage every time they fought with the third branch. The third branch's couple were good at secretly scamming people. Others did not expect their martial arts to be so strong. If they fought, the second branch would always lose. Update on Biomicron X0 VL. Samicron M that day. When Jia Meizi saw the eldest daughter of the third branch, anger surged. She thought about how her Xiener's life was still unknown and how she worked like a slave for others. How could the daughter of the third branch enjoy life at home? At that time, her eyes were bloodshot. She stuffed the 12-year-old girl's mouth and put her into a sack and brought her to the county city. On the way, someone saw that something was wrong with her and noticed that Madame Chong was looking for someone. They roughly guessed it and told Madame Chong. Madame Chong rushed to the county city in a hurry and happened to see Madame Jia planning to sell her daughter to a brothel. Her eyes were about to split open as she went up and started fighting. It was true that Madame Jia could not defeat her, but Madame Chong had to protect her daughter, so she was at a disadvantage. Unexpectedly, Madame Jia took the opportunity to tear off her clothes and expose most of her body in public. Who were the people in the brothel? They were all despicable men. Madame Chong was stunned and her mind went blank. In the end, it was her daughter who escorted her back. After Madame Chong returned, there was something wrong with her and she was in a daze. The doctor said that her brain had been hurt and was afraid that she would be like this in the future. However, Madame Zhao even said that she was embarrassing and wanted Gu Dahu to divorce Madame Chong. Gu Dahu was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He pushed Madame Zhao and almost made her fall. He rushed into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and ran to the second branch's room. Madame Jia was trembling in fear. Gu Dai naturally went to stop her, and the knife slashed his wrist. The tendons in Gu Da's hand were broken, and his right hand was completely crippled. However, Gu Dahu did not give up. He steeled his heart and cut off the tendons in Gu Da's left hand. Old Gus' house was covered in blood. When Old Gu and Madame Zhao rushed in, they saw Gu Dai lying in a pool of blood with a scream. Madame Jia was knocking Gu Dai away. Then, she picked up the knife that he had dropped on the ground and slashed his leg. Old Gu collapsed to the ground. The last thought in his mind was, "If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have sharpened the knife yesterday."